Township Board of Adjustment for April 15th, 2026. Legal notices required by statute have been satisfied and certification stating same will be executed. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Goldberg.
Here.
Mr. Trachtenberg.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Schuster.
Here.
Mr. Benoit.
Here.
Mr. Kramer.
Here.
Mr. Woodford.
Here.
Ms. Simmons.
Here.
Mr. Evangel. In our professionals, we have our engineer, Mr. Joseph Voigt.
Here.
Ms. Kay Keller. And our board attorney, Mr. Oler.
Here. And just, I'm sorry, but before we get started, Mr. Kelly let me know earlier today that his court reporter couldn't be present, but is on the Zoom call, correct?
That's right.
Do we have confirmation that she's on?
You're muted.
No, you need to move the computer.
Yeah.
Should be, have the Zoom in, has a time. I don't know if you're hearing from.
She's not listed as a panelist, so we'd have to check the attendees.
Raise their hand, right, so they can identify themselves as somebody should be promoted.
Yeah, our IT support can promote her to a panelist, so she'll appear and then she can talk as well. Give me 1 second.
Because in case she doesn't pick up on something.
Okay,
Sure.
so
Know who's speaking, might
would
ask for
the court reporter just digitally raise her hand?
I'm here, thank you.
Okay,
Okay, very
great, thank you.
Hey, back up.
Okay, we're just going to
Has
make
to be
the
fixed.
technical difficulties be solved here.
But we won't have any sound up here. Well, no, but you want to make sure that it's, you know what I mean? Because, like,
I think we're good.
you don't have to hear anything. Sorry, guys, I was there.
There you go.
No, I don't.
It's worse. I think that might have been because we were sitting right next to the computer, but anyway.
All right.
No more
But anyone
feedback.
can do their job, just, you know,
So, Mr. Kelly, why don't you tell us where we are tonight as
Yes,
far as status of this application?
Actual, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for the record, Larry Kelly, we have the applicant, 383 South Street LLC. So this evening, I'll tell you momentarily what we intend to do. I recall where the Neighbors Council left off, which was we concluded their acoustic witness, and they're down to one witness as they confirmed with being their project planner. Once their project planner concludes, I assume that then their case in chief in opposition to our application will rest. We then have limited recall witness testimony, Mr. Chairman, of two witnesses, and then we will have a recall of Matthew Bruin. Matt Bruin is the representative and member of the applicant LLC. He testified at the onset of the application.
Right.
He'll be incredibly brief, a few minutes with a few remarks for the board. Hopefully nothing even worthy of cross-examination, but Mr. Bruin will continue testimony for a few moments. Thereafter, we're going to call our project engineer. Patrick McClellan is a civil engineer that will appear in Fred Stewart's stead this evening on the limited issue of whether or not a major development has been triggered. That was an issue raised by the objector's civil engineer. We have confirmed that there is in fact no major development triggered. Mr. McClellan will be sworn in, will qualify him. He will read it for the record the benefit of a report and analysis prepared by Stewart Surveying and Engineering in that regard. That will then conclude our redirect of civil testimony with the new witness, Mr. McClellan. We then have an acoustic engineer, Ben Riller from Ostergaard.
Can you
Yes, sir.
spell his last name?
McClellan or Mueller?
Mueller.
Mueller.
I'm sorry, if Mr. Kelly could speak up, someone's rustling papers here.
I'm usually told to quiet down. Is that better?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
So Mr. Mueller will testify as a licensed expert in the field of acoustic engineering. He's conducted a field study. We previously submitted a report to the board in February. He can speak to that as well as the benefit of his recent study in the field. His testimony is likely to be a matter of minutes as well. I'm direct, Mr. Chairman. At that point, we might very well conclude or have a very limited direct of Mr. Tobia, depending upon what we might hear from the objectors' counsel, the objector team this evening. And then we'll go from there, Mr. Chairman. At that point, we intend to rest our case. We know that there's going to be a number of conditions considered. If the board intends to make a motion to vote in favor of the application, we can have a, I'm sure, lengthy dialogue on that, and we're prepared to do so at that point. But I think that'll come after the witness testimony. So
That's correct.
yeah. You'll probably hear from 3 witnesses, Mr. Chairman, I think. All brief.
Mr. Rosenbach?
Do I have to go to a mic in order to?
Yes, you do.
You may have to hold the power button on the bottom to activate it. There's a button right on the bottom of the microphone.
Right in the back. Just right at the end.
The back of the stick, just,
The bottom of the little,
Bottom.
right there.
The bottom. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm in 98% agreement with what Mr. Kelly has said. I'm going to explain the 2%, right?
I can't hear that mic. Sorry.
I don't think it's on.
Well,
I see a light.
the light.
I see a light.
I think it's.
Tap it. Tap it. There we go.
There you go. Okay. I think you're taller. All right. Anyway, what I was saying was I'm in 98% agreement with what Mr. Kelly has said, and I'm going to explain the 2% difference. First of all, before I put my planner on the stand, I do want to recall for less than 5 minutes, my client, John Weisgerber, only for one purpose, which is we expect this is going to be the final hearing for this matter. And he had a drone go over the site yesterday. And we want to show the board exactly what is on the ground as of today, because what is on the ground as of today does not quite match up with the site plan that is presented to the board for approval. And the board should know that. That's the first thing. Secondly, I will then put on my planner. And the only other place where I disagree with Mr. Kelly is, of course, there may be other opposition people. I have no control over them. I don't know who they are. But otherwise, I agree.
okay, so you ready to start that?
Yes.
All right, then in that case, I call Mr. Weisgerber. He's already been sworn. If you want to swear him in
And
again.
we'll swear him again. though.
All right.
Yes.
And John, when you give one to Mr. Oler, Mr. Oler can mark it as an exhibit.
All right, so Mr. Rosenbach and Mr. Kelly, for my notes, I think we're up to 012. We agree on the number?
I think that's right.
We're up to 012?
I believe so.
So what's being handed out is being marked as Exhibit 012, today's date. Hope you all got out and paid your taxes today,
Kate,
4/15, right?
Kate, do you want a copy?
Taxes for 1, 2, 0.
We have 2 years. Take one for Joe, too.
Yeah.
Send me the handcuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. Eric, can we put this on the screen? All right, very good. So we now have 012 on the screen.
Now, let me do that again. Mr. Weisberger, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so Mr. Weisgerber, first let's set a foundation. We've had the board mark a new exhibit 012 as an exhibit. And could you explain, before you say anything that's on it, could you explain to the board what it is?
This is a drone shot that was taken yesterday over the South Street Garden site. It's a full site.
And you have professionally worked with this drone company before, correct?
Yes, they've done numerous
And in fact, you have, in this series of hearings, submitted prior drone shots from this company?
Yes.
All right. Now, what I would like you to do then, because I told the board, I told them what we were going to do. Now let's do it. We are here, it is probably the last hearing on this, and I would like you to explain to the board what is on the ground today that is different from the site plan that the board has been presented and is being asked to approve.
Okay. If you look at this, at the plan, you'll see a blue line that goes around the site. That's the original delineation for the extent of the impervious coverage. And you can see that the gray, which is the paved area now, pretty much exceeds that by 25, 30 feet in many cases. Also at the front of the property, the original site plan showed like a curvy walkway.
So Mr. Weisberger, first, who placed the blue line on this plan?
I
Who
did.
overlaid it?
It's superimposed from the Stewart site plan.
And how do we know it's to the same scale?
Graphically, it was inserted at the same scale.
Mr. Chairman, can we ask what software was used to do this? This gentleman's
AutoCAD.
not a civil engineer as far as I'm aware.
AutoCAD,
Pardon?
AutoCAD software.
Okay, well,
I
you can
use
have
it.
your engineer take a look and you can
Yeah.
cross out
I'm just
that
curious,
for
we're
us.
talking
Yeah.
about numbers here and dimensions from a gentleman who's not a licensed civil engineer, who's opining of an overlay prepared by him. I think it's got limited value. And we're delving into engineering testimony a little bit, but I prefer to the
It's a
board.
graphic at this point. It's not, there's no calculations here.
Understood. I just want to be sure that the blue line is to the same scale as the photograph so that we're looking, it's apples and apples,
It's the
right?
exact
Yeah.
same scale as the photograph.
And that's the question. We know that how?
Excuse me?
How? How do we know that? That it's the same scale?
Because I prepared the drawing in AutoCAD with the Stewart drawing to scale with an AutoCAD overlay using the image scaled to the Stewart drawing.
And perhaps you should explain to the board again, it's been many, many months, your background.
I'm a consultant. I'm not a licensed engineer. I work in this field every day.
And what field is that?
I'm a consultant in the engineering field, but I'm not a licensed engineer.
Okay, so
I'm
you,
involved with site plans, building construction, building design every day.
and establishing exhibits such as this one?
Yes.
Okay, again, Mr. Cali, you can have your engineer take a look, but we're going to hear
We'll
this.
give you the AutoCAD drawing if you
Yeah.
want.
Okay. Go
All
ahead.
right. All right, so the first thing that you've pointed out to the board then is the blue line that you have drawn.
Correct.
And the blue line, according to the site plan, is the delineation of impervious surface?
Correct.
All right.
Parking lots, driveways.
And what you are saying is that this drawing, if I may say, heading off to the left, let's say, from the buildings, it shows additional impervious coverage.
Correct.
All right. And what else on this is
At the
different?
front of the site, the original site plan showed a curvy brick path.
Yes, and in fact, for the board members, what we could refer to, I don't have any way to display it that I'm aware of.
Yes,
is-
we have that image.
Okay, well, it would be sheet 3 of 6 of the Stewart engineering plan. It's the site plan submitted by the applicant. And if we could put that up, there we go. Okay.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but before you go to there, the blue line, I'm sure you said it, but I missed it. What does the blue line represent?
The outline of the impervious coverage
As submitted.
as submitted
On the site plan?
on the Stewart drawing.
And the black line?
That's the property line.
Okay. And,
Again, superimposed from the Stewart drawings.
and I'm just looking at, so you have proposed parking in blue written in that area, right? And then to the right, you have proposed buildings and pavement in orange. Just where it's pointing to doesn't seem to line up with the building, though, right? Am I right about that?
Mr. Oler, I hate, this may not be my place, but I am an engineer, not a civil engineer, but I actually worked in the world of reconnaissance and things like that. First off, the area closest to us in this picture
Yeah.
will appear larger because it's obvious the drone is not directly overhead. It's actually on the side, to the side. What was the altitude?
About 250 feet.
Okay, so the altitude was 250 feet, but the area across here is far more than that. Okay, so that will allow some, and I'm trying to come up with the right words again. I'm not an optics engineer, but you will have some distortion because just as you look at it, it distorts. So what you really need to be able to do is match surveyor's marks to surveyor's marks. Okay, you have to geographically locate this. This is not geographically located. This is drawn on. This is drawn onto a picture with no geolocation. Does that make sense?
It does.
Because first off, the area closest to us should be bigger in our picture than the area far away. Yet this appears to be a perfect rectangle coming out toward us, okay? That would not be the case if you geographically registered this. My belief. I think you need somebody who really knows what you're doing on that.
The only thing I would add is,
Am I correct?
I was gonna say, it sounds right to me, but I was gonna say, as a planner.
I don't know what they
we
are,
do
the
make
structures
we make
that have been
exhibits,
placed
you know,
Yeah.
I do it on behalf of board boards, I do it on behalf of applicants. And I would, you know, and Mr. Aller, you know, if you agree with this, but I would recommend that the board take this, you know, more as like a visual exhibit, potentially, rather than anything involving percentages or numbers or square feet or anything like that.
That's where I was
That's
going.
exactly what we propose.
That's
We are
exactly
not-
where I was
We're not
going.
presenting this as some engineering study.
Yes, and I just want to.
What's your engineering judgment? Am I off
just have
in
to
this?
say, because we do make exhibits
I know
like
where
this,
his
you know, we
vote's
do
going.
scale things to the best of our abilities, and this does have the
We're not-
reference to the site plan, it does have the scale, but I think we just want to keep looking at this, I think it'd be appropriate to take this as a visual exhibit rather than, you know, changing any engineering testimony, which I don't think you're planning on providing.
So in the same vein, qualitative assessment rather than quantitative assessment.
Right.
This exhibit for the board's understanding.
But you see where I was coming
Because
from.
what you were describing is a certain isometric view
Yes,
that is provided because of the distance of the ground that's not provided from satellite imagery, which is at a much greater extent and then can be geographic.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
I didn't have the right words at the tip of my tongue.
We always let you speak
Okay.
first, and then I supplement.
May I say that I appreciate all the comments that have just been made. And the next thing that Mr. Weisgerber is going to talk about is not subject to any possible distortion, doesn't require any measurements. And I think the easiest way to do it is I've already indicated we're going to be using site 3 of 6 from the Stewart site plan. And I do have them if you want them, but what we're going to be pointing out now is toward the front, right toward South Street, at the front lawn of the site. What it shows is one piece of impervious coverage, which is the slightly looping path. So, Mr. Weisgerber, could you testify to that now, please?
Well, graphically, you can see that it's no longer a twisted path. It's a series of walkways with gravel fill all around. There's very little vegetation left in the front. It's all been paved over. None of that was shown as part of the original.
In fact, there's nothing left of the curve. In fact, there are various loops, straightaways.
Yeah, the curve is superimposed, what the original intent was, but what's built is not even close to the original application.
And that's not the result of any distortion from a camera, is
You
it?
don't need to measure this, as you can graphically, you can see that there's a giant difference between what was proposed and what exists on the ground today.
Okay, and do you have anything else that you want to point out in terms of a discrepancy between the site plan and the visual taken as?
Well, there are also new structures in the back of the site. Actually, they're well into the wetlands. They look like sea boxes or some kind of containers that are being used for storage on the site. None of that was indicated on the original site plan application either. The driveway's paved driveway going up to it. And then-
Excuse me, so you're saying that the, looking on the left side of of your diagram, there's containers there, and where that black vehicle is parked, that's impervious coverage?
That's a new driveway, yes. It goes up to those storage containers.
And is there anything else that you've noticed that is different from what the board is being asked to consider?
There's a lot more lighting, that's for sure. The original site application showed no lighting in the front of the building, nothing on Pear Street. The Isolux traces on the original plans that were submitted show 0 foot candles in the front of the building. There have been floodlights placed on the front of the building shining north towards Prospect that burn sometimes till 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, anything else on this exhibit that you want
That's
to point
it.
out?
That's not on this exhibit, no.
Okay, well, you've pointed out 3 things. Is there anything else, or is that it?
That's it.
Okay, that's very, thank you. You make it cross-examined, don't go away.
Oh, okay.
Board members, any questions of this witness?
I have one question. On that proposed brick path where you outlined that, and you're showing that as sort of, I think you referred to it as gravelly road. Have you actually been on site and walked back there? Like, what is this? Is that paved over? Are there pavers and block on the ground there on that path? Or is
It's crushed stone.
It's all crushed stone? Okay.
It's just like the driveways in the parking lot. You don't have to drive on the site, you can see it from South Street.
So are you talking, so you've used the phrase paved a number of times. Is that different than what you're talking about with the gravel? Different areas? You said paved
The
driveways?
material that's there is the same material that's in all the driveways and all of the parking areas that were described as impervious coverage in the original application.
Okay, but it's not, when you say like towards the.
It's not blacktop.
It's not asphalt or
No.
concrete or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
Paver blocks or anything along those lines?
No, I mean,
It's the
yeah.
same material as the driveways
Yeah,
and the
thank you.
parking lot.
Do you know if those storage containers are permanent or temporary?
They're C boxes, so they're movable, okay,
Thank
but
you.
they're sitting there being used.
Do you know how long they've been there?
There's one in the back that's been there for a long time. There's a 40-foot, if you look to the left of the black boxes, you'll see there's another 40-foot C box right behind it that's actually pushed back into the wetlands. It's a large rectangle. That's a 40-foot C box.
So the one that's.
The others were
The one
placed
that's
probably in the
90%
last
off
2
the
months.
property?
Excuse me?
The one that's about 90% off the property?
Yes.
And I would note that I believe that that's technically right of way.
It's in the Whitney right away.
Yes, it's not another person's property. It's Whitney Avenue, unimproved right of way. Not,
It's still
It's still in what?
entitled to the original parent tract. It hasn't been improved, it hasn't been accepted for any purpose of
Okay.
municipal access of the public. So it may consolidate into the block behind it, or it may split 50-50 or into this tract.
Is that, I think we had the wetlands expert say there's wetlands back there. Is that in the wetlands?
Yes.
I'm asking our engineer.
Right there. That's my understanding.
Oh, there's one there? That's what's talking. Oh, okay. Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I'm trying to figure, the brick path, are you suggesting that it's a material difference? In that,
It was proposed as a brick path. There's no brick path. The entire area has been filled with crushed stone.
so it's the material, not the design of the pathway?
Well, there's
Can I answer that as counsel? I don't know if that's a lay answer. I think it's a material difference. I think that when a board is presented a site plan and people are here to review, either support or oppose the site plan, we're entitled to know what we're actually opposing or supporting. And I think it's quite material that there's a very complicated, almost Byzantine, much denser collection of impervious coverage in the front of the site than is shown to this board. I think it's material.
Okay, thank you. And then going to the parking area, the difference between the blue area and that you're saying is a material difference?
Subject to the comments that for all we know, there may be some distortion, but if it's not de minimis, then it is certainly material.
Okay, thank you.
So with respect to the site plan issue and the differences, right, with respect to, for example, this brick path that we're seeing in the photograph compared to the site plan, which is different. You know, the applicant has submitted a site plan saying they're going to do a brick path in this configuration. So if, you know, if this site plan were approved the way it exists, the applicant would be required to remove the paths that are there now and install a brick path as shown on the site plan.
Well, Mr. Oler, I would say that that's technically correct. And I'm using the word technically because if it weren't for Mr. Weisgerber pointing this out to the board wouldn't even know that there's a discrepancy.
Well, but I think my point is, I don't think it matters that there's a discrepancy. What matters is if this gets approved and then, I don't know, Joe, whoever goes out to do the inspections later would look at the approved site plan and what was built, right? And if
deviations would constitute not getting a CO until they're rectified.
Right. So they have to, you know, this is what they submitted to us. They have to build what they submitted. And, you know, we're not here to approve what's there now. We're here to approve or not what they've submitted.
Of course,
Right.
and the problem with us as opponents to this application is we're opposing something that's already in the ground.
Understood.
And it's, okay, I mean, many applicants wait until the board takes a vote.
Right.
And then they actually do something. These people didn't bother to wait. And so it's all here. And so,
Right.
for instance, when you say, well, they won't have a CO, are you going to say, if you don't approve this, they have to cease operations because they don't have a CO? I just don't see that happening as a practical matter.
You know, that's not to this board, right? That's enforcement. But if this board approved a particular site plan and if it's built substantially different, then they either have to come back to this board to amend that site plan or they have to build it differently. And without a CO first, I mean, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong here, but for enforcement purposes, they would get a notification, right? A notice of violation. And if they didn't correct it, then the municipality could shut it down.
Correct.
I mean, that's the draconian way maybe, but it's ultimately what could and potentially would happen.
Yeah, and I think, you know, from I think the biggest issue here, it's less about, you know, that the board needs to, you know, wants to control the design of how they want to lay out their flowers, you know, or their displays there. The issue to me is that, and again, this would all be rectified if this were to be approved, is that the way this is shown is planting display area, brick pathway, and lawn. There's no lawn in this area. That's a substantial difference, and that would have to, if they were to get approved with this site plan, they would have to, like Joe said, they wouldn't get a CO unless they built what was on the site plan.
They have to live with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so, you know, I think, you know, maybe, I think we all know there's been a lot of activity here, and part of it may have been that it was sort of a continuing use, and they were trying to clean up the site, and maybe got a little too creative at certain points, like with this. And whether or not it's temporary, you get a site plan approved, and that's what you have to build.
Right, and the same would be true with the trailers that you're pointing out to the far left of the site, right? If they're not otherwise permitted to be there, then it's, you know, and they're not on the site plan, then they would have to be removed.
Correct.
Right?
And likewise for the additional impervious coverage, if in fact it measures out that way.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
And so I think what we're discussing is the balance of an approval of contemplated and provided will have to be constructed. And then if there's deviations, it constitutes an amended site plan approval prior to a CO.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. The board's not being asked to approve what's there necessarily, right? They're being asked to approve the site plan that's submitted. And if it's different, which I think you've shown is different, right? Then those differences have to be changed to conform with the site plan.
Yes, and that is all part of the township's, if it were to be approved, that's all part of the resolution compliance process. It's part of the inspection process. You know, it's not the first time that someone's tried to build something that they weren't permitted to do or already did. So this is something that I would say, you know, that the township is well equipped to handle as long as the applicant is comfortable with what site plan they were to get approved if the board chose to approve it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may for a moment, so
Okay, go ahead.
from an efficiency standpoint of this process, we're talking about something that really is pragmatically not even an issue right now, as I see it.
I understand that, but
Go
if,
back to challenging our site plan as opposed to the, what if they don't build what they're supposed to build, if this were approved? There's a lot of ifs, and I've heard nothing substantive about our site plan thus far, except for the fact that the drone seems to identify details that go beyond the parameters of the Stewart Surveying and Engineering site plan. Their challenge is ripe, and it's high time to challenge our pending project. This what if is something that gets reconciled.
But Larry, it's not a what if, they're challenging what's there, right? Which is not really relevant to the
Right.
board because it's not what you're asking to build, right? You can certainly challenge what they're asking to build in the proposed site plan, but what's there doesn't matter.
Right, and I apologize, I misspoke. The what if is, the down the road is, what if this remains post-approval, post-built? It won't, it can't. It has to be reconciled.
so are you
by
saying,
amendment or-
are you saying then that, in the event that it isn't built as proposed, that no CO is issued and they shut down?
Absolutely. I mean, the CO is a tricky thing, because the CO ties to life, health, and safety.
Stipulate for that, because I'm not
Right.
endorsing the CO if there's substantial deviations
Right.
on their project or any project in this municipality,
Right.
Right.
right?
Right.
I think the point's been made, and the board understands it, the applicant and the objector understand it, and to the extent that the applicant wishes to quantify those deviations and revise the site plan prior to vote, they may decide that before the end of the night, or they may decide to proceed to a vote. That's their decision.
Right, agree.
Okay,
100% right.
any questions, board members?
No. Okay, well, thank you for the discussion. What I said was we just wanted to let the board know what's on the ground. We
Okay,
did.
right, so we're doing cross-examination of the witness.
Oh, I thought
you were done.
Correct, no, the board would ask questions. Mr. Kelly, do you have any questions?
No, sir, I don't.
Any members of the public have any questions? Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion. Okay, your next witness.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to call Alexander McLean, a professional planner.
Okay.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name for the record, please?
Alexander McLean.
And would you spell your last name, please?
Yeah, it's McClean.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McLean, first, what I would like to do is to qualify you before this board so that you can testify. So could you please first advise the board if you are a licensed professional planner?
Yes, I'm a licensed professional planner. Yes, and I hold a master's in city and regional planning from Rutgers University. I'm certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners, obviously licensed by the State Board of Professional Planners, and I've testified before boards throughout the state.
Is that license in New Jersey?
Yes, and it's active in good standing.
Thank you.
And am I correct that you also represent boards in the state?
Yes, I'm actually, well, I'm the principal planner for the city of East Orange as well, in Essex County.
And in order for you to testify here, what actions have you taken?
So I have reviewed the master plan, zoning ordinance, reviewed the site plan, the neighborhood, and I've looked at the history of the property, largely through aerial imagery, and the applicant planner's report as well, and also just listening in on the last two hearings.
By the way, have you viewed the sessions for which you were not present?
Yes, I have.
And have you looked at the history of the site?
I have, yeah.
And have you looked at Mr. Tobias' report that was submitted in support of the application?
I have, yeah.
Based on Mr. McLean's background and what he has done, I offer him to the board as a planning expert to address this application.
He's qualified.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right. First, let me ask you this question. The applicant describes itself as a garden center.
Mm.
Is a garden center a defined term under the Morris Township ordinances?
No, it is not.
Is a farm a defined term under the Morris Township ordinances?
Actually, yes, it is.
And does this facility qualify as a farm?
I'm sorry, I have it here. As I read it here, so I read into the record, I guess.
I'm just asking if this facility qualifies as a farm under the definitions in the town ordinance.
No, since there's no agricultural activity taking place, where you're actually growing something on the property.
There is a definition in the township ordinance that's called a retail establishment, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is this facility a retail establishment?
Yes, it is.
And why or how is it a retail establishment?
Yes, the property sells a number of goods, and well, in addition to potted plants, it sells home furnishings and just various other home goods.
So would you say that, leaving aside the term garden center, what the board is facing is a property being used as a retail establishment under the applicable ordinances?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Now, are you aware of any approval that was ever granted to this property allowing it to be used as a retail establishment?
No, I'm unaware of any authorization from any board, like a D1 variance being issued to authorize a retail operation on this property outside of what's permitted in the RA 15 zoning district.
Well, let's talk about that, just so that the record is clear. What is permitted in the RA 15 district?
Sure. The R15 zoning district where permits where any permitted principal use in the any principal permitted uses in the RA 30 single
130?
the RA 130 single family zoning district are permitted, and hospitals for human beings are only permitted, and principal permitted uses in the RA 30 districts include single family homes, which is obviously cited in the RA 15 zoning district, agricultural uses and farms in accordance with section 95-34(3) right to farm regulations, which stipulate that, quote, where permitted, commercial farms shall be a principal permitted use in agricultural overlay zone AOZ. And there's a list of permitted activities include, and then they list some 16 permitted agricultural uses.
Is a garden center identified as a permitted agricultural use?
It is not, no.
What else is allowed in the RA 130 zone?
Cluster of residential development groups as provided by section under chapter 57 of the land use development, parks, playgrounds, firehouses, libraries, and municipal buildings, country clubs, golf and golf courses as provided in 95.
And everything else is a permitted accessory use, correct?
Correct, yeah.
All right. So, do you as a planner, is it part of your job as a planner to know who has the burden of proof in establishing whether a use is a lawful non-conforming use?
Absolutely, yes.
All right. And then before this board, who has the burden? Is it up to the applicant to show that the use on this site is a lawful non-conforming use, or is it up to us to show that it's not a lawful non-conforming site?
So, wait, I'm sorry, before you even go there, like, I don't know why this is relevant. They're here for a D1 use variance anyway, right? So it doesn't matter if something's pre-existing non-conforming or not, because we have a plan before us that's saying this is the use, and there's a list of 3 or 4 things, all of which are D1s. So that's what they're here for.
They're here for that. But
Yeah.
I will tell you why it matters, Mr. Oler, because it is our position that the garden center is not a lawful use.
Okay,
So,
but they're here for a D1 for a garden center.
I think this, Mr. Aller, if I could just say, this to me is very, very similar to what you just said to Mr. Weisgerber, which is that we are not here to review what they've done so far.
Right.
They do not have approvals on this site to do all the things they're asking for. We all acknowledge that. That's why they're here asking for a D1 use variance to cover all of these things. This is not a farm. No one has ever said it's a farm. You need 5 acres to be a farm, among many other things. This is previously a retail store. They're proposing to we've heard all the things that they're proposing to do here. That's what this application is for. So, part of the testimony, I think, from the neighbors has been what they are doing on the site right now. And I think that everyone is aware that they're not allowed to do that right now because they don't have approval for it. But that's not what this board is here to judge.
Well, may I disagree in the following sense?
Sure.
I mean, I've read the application, I've been to hearings, I've seen the ones that I've missed, and as far as I know, this is an application for approval for a coffee shop and a party site, and maybe a gift shop. Nobody's asking here for an approval for a garden center. That's just presumed.
Well, you're just like, your client, you've already acknowledged that there's no definition for a garden center. So what they're applying for is like, as you stated, but it's not like classified as a garden center because you've admitted that there's no such definition.
Sure, but this is the first time that I'm hearing, and I consider myself to be fairly attentive, the first time that I'm hearing that it's the entire site, everything, from front to back, for which a D1 variance.
That's the nature of a D1 variance application. The entirety of the rider for the description of their proposed uses is on the table for consideration for moving forward, in no consideration of the prior use of the site.
Yes.
The site could have been an office building. The site could have been vacant. The entirety of the proposed use to move forward is here tonight. It's been here at all the applications, and it's part of their record testimony, their burden of proof, and their planning proofs by Mr. Tobia. And I believe that's the understanding of the applicant.
The only thing I want to correct on that is that it's at one point, there was some miscommunication with the applicant where the applicant was attempting to seek a D2 variance for
Correct.
portions of it. I think you will all remember I chimed in many times to remind this board that we are not here for a D2 variance.
Right.
We are here for an all-encompassing D1 variance to permit, as is often the case, kind of gets like esoteric when you really delve into the uses, but that's because they run with the land. You are here for an application for a garden store, event space with accessory coffee sales and all the other things that they've heard about today. That's what this application is for.
Right. In fact, let me just refer back to the rider that was filed with the application, which says our concept integrates a garden center, florist, gift/home decor store, coffee bar, and event venue. Right? Designed to serve both retail and community experience functions. So, I mean, they're here for all those uses. And if they're going on now, which they are, right, they're probably going on now without approval. But that's why they're here. So they're here for their site plan that they have submitted, right? And those 5 things that I just listed is part of what they're asking D1 variance relief for.
All right. This actually, may I say, doesn't trouble me in the sense that, as far as I know, no, not as far as I know, this board was originally positioned as a D2 variance and expansion of a non-conforming use. I know if that changed, I know.
That is not true. If you look at our TCC reports, which are part of the public record, we specifically state that this is a
Right.
I
D1
know,
variance.
the TCC did, but the applicant viewed it as a D2.
Well, that's semantics. It's a D1
It was
now.
noticed as a
Right.
D1.
Don't argue about
That's
whether
all
it's a
right.
D2 or it's a D1.
And as long as this board understands, because until today, I sure didn't understand it, that the entire use as a garden center is up in the air and is not locked in and has not been approved and requires approval, that's fine.
Right.
I'm satisfied with
If
that.
there was a previous approval for a garden center, then, and if they were expanding it, then it would be a D2, but we don't have that situation. So it's here for the first time as a garden center, it's a D1.
Yes. Yeah, we have talked about that when the prior use has been raised, it has been in the context of, as you often do with the use variance application, the use show that this property has been used for commercial purposes in the past. It doesn't mean it's allowed to continue to be. It's part of the test of particular suitability, in my opinion. I don't want to do Mr. Topia's job for him, but that, we have always been, and I hope the board members all understand this, because I think we've made this pretty clear. Rich and I have tried to make, this is a D1 variance. There is no permitted underlying retail use on the site. The old use was abandoned, and what they're doing here is very different from that in a lot of ways. So I apologize. I apologize if you misconstrued that, sir, but that's always been this board's position. And I think that the applicant has also come, we made them aware of that during the first, it's been almost, look, it's been 9 months. It's been a long time. But, we made them aware of that during the first hearing. You agree with that, Mr. Kelly, right?
I do in part, the existing facility, had been there for years. And going back to TCC, this is going back about a year now. There were permits lawfully pulled for the continued use of the facility that was there. And as the vision grew, we realized this was more than just a limited site plan. We realized that there were going to be components in there that we thought could have maybe been couched as a D2, as an expansion of that use. But your TCC staff agreed they're wholly separate and prosecuted as a D1. So for the enhanced uses, right, the event space, the coffee shop, absolutely, D1. D1 is all encompassing now as well at this point. So as far as we're looking at is our site plan, if it were approved, it's approved under the guise and merits of a D1 having been supported during this hearing process. But permits were lawfully pulled for the continuation of that facility, so that's why that is there. That predates the code, and that was never disputed. Certainly wasn't timely challenged going back a year by our objector either.
Right, but the prior use was substantially different than the proposed use.
Yes.
The prior use was they grew flowers and sold them.
And sold.
Exactly right, yes.
And so when permits were pulled, the understanding was that they would be able to then legally be able to maintain and clean up the site, because otherwise they would be operating, without anything. So that's where we got to where we are today. But it's all encompassed into a D1 variance.
Okay.
Back to you.
I just want to make sure going forward, and it's an important point, so forgive me. So the history of the site is irrelevant because the clock started fresh on their use. Whether or not it was permitted, started fresh, and they are seeking a D1 variance on every aspect that they are doing on the site without whispering or suggesting that it is a continuation of a prior approved use. I would like to make sure that that's clear, because otherwise the history matters.
That is what this application before this board is for. If the applicant chose to not have this application, if they wanted to go under the existing permits, or whatever permits they got, that would be a totally separate situation, and that's not what's here tonight. So no, in my opinion, what is not relevant except in terms of testimony in support of a use variance.
Then, before I continue with Mr. McLean, because I know this has been quite a diversion, let me say it's quite mysterious to me then that in the planning testimony provided by the applicant, for the applicant, there was no testimony about the positive or negative criteria about a garden center. Not any.
Well, that's argument, so let's get back to testimony.
Of course it's argument. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, but we're here to ask questions, you
All right.
get testimony right now. Arguments for later.
Yes.
I'd like to get this through tonight. But don't look that way.
Let me turn to a different subject, which is you are aware that as part of the application's case, they presented what they call comparable properties from other locations, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And in your opinion, as an expert planner, should the board be considering those allegedly comparable properties?
It's not, in my opinion, that they should be considering them. There were some flaws with the referenced sites that were included. The J&M Garden Center event service, which had J&M Garden Center, which had, when I was there, had no event service. La Serra Gardens, which is located in, Totowa, New Jersey. It's located in a residential industrial zone, I-3 zone, not comparable to the RI-15 zoning district.
Well, looking at all the properties, was the board provided enough information to be able to say that in some sense, they're comparable to this particular location on 383 South Street in Morris Township?
Yes, that was the implication, yeah. Yeah.
I'm
And it
sorry,
was-
what-
oh,
I'm sorry, what
Yeah,
did you say?
That, there would be, it was implied in the planner's report that it should be compared to.
Right, I mean,
the site.
in your opinion,
Yeah.
not his.
Oh, okay, yes. No, it should not be considered, yeah.
Okay, what information would the board need, property by property, in order to say, yeah, I'm comparing an apple to an apple versus an apple to a stone or an orange?
Well, I think it comes down to the criteria for for granting a use variance, which is site suitability, looking at context and the physical characteristics of a property, and those things need to be comparable to the subject site.
In your review, did you find any of the allegedly comparable sites to be close enough to this site as to be usefully informing the board in any respect how it should vote on this application?
I did not, no.
Let's turn to something else. In the applicant's planner's testimony, he referred to various goals under the municipal land use law. And he listed them alphabetically because that's how they're listed in the statute. And have you yourself taken a look at these various goals that were listed?
I have, yes.
I'll tell you what, let's do this. In the planning report itself, that's the applicant's planning report. I'll put it in front of you, it's page 12.
Yeah.
Okay, so could you, because Mr. Tabai went through these quickly, but he went through them.
Yeah.
So could you go through them? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them.
Yeah.
Could you go through them one by one, give
Yeah.
the letter, explain what it is, and explain your view of it in terms of this application?
Sure. So the first purpose of the municipal land use law that the applicant's planner referenced as part of the special reasons criteria for granting a D1 use is purpose A, for encouraging municipal action to guide the appropriate use and development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And so on this one, as indicated throughout the previously submitted testimony here, we had our civil engineer, Mr. Mark Chesvet, who testified on the increase in impervious surface on the proposed buildings and pavement area. He noted, from the last time I was here and I was listening, is the net increase in the amount of impervious surface of approximately 18,480 square feet. We had our wetland specialist, Darren L. LeBrake, who indicated that the transit area had been disturbed by the current owners with soil landscape waste among other materials. Some of the waste appeared to be placed in delineated wetland based on wetland boundary flags that were set in those areas. And part of the unnamed tributary map on the NJGeoWeb had been filled with some of the riparian zone, was cleared and regraded. And the site, they submitted to the Morris Township identified wetlands and wetland transit areas on the property. And most of that identified transit area has been covered with gravel. You heard testimony from our sound engineer, Jack Zabura, who noted the tunneling effect of the noise, since, as was noted in the proposed conditions of approval, that the entertainment space, the outdoor entertainment space, would be in the rear of the property, because there was a condition, one of the first conditions was to prevent any kind of outdoor entertainment use activity in the front yard. So all that noise that would be generated from the back would be basically tunneled down what was this here? Prospect Place, I'm sorry, just blanked out. We also saw historic aerials, data and recordings from Mr. Weisgerber and Mr. Vieira. Also noted here, the property has already seen substantial redevelopment for non-agricultural use that are not permitted in the R15 zoning district. This has resulted in an expansion of impervious surface, as noted by the civil engineer, or the opposition civil engineer. In anticipation of the proposed plans for the event space, the cafe, and as noted in the applicant's traffic engineer during his testimony on July 28th of last year, an additional 82 parking spaces on top of the existing 10 spaces on Pear Street are being proposed. I just also want to note here that during the hearing on August 25th, the board reviewed the proposed conditions here. I just mentioned the restrictions on the outdoor activities. So it's my assessment that all the identified issues associated with the current use of the property has not would result in the general welfare, in the promotion of the general welfare, and would exacerbate the formal construction of the proposed event space and cafe.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I just ask you to, again, the final words of this section are, that that it promotes the general welfare.
Right.
In terms of zoning law, does a commercial establishment, let's be more specific. It's a garden center, it's going to be a cafe, it's going to be an event or party center, it's a gift shop, I guess. They're all commercial uses.
Yes.
Are those commercial uses considered, as a matter of law, as promoting general welfare?
No.
All right. Is there a New Jersey Supreme Court quote on exactly that subject?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right. Could you explain to the board who's being quoted here?
So this is from the Burbridge case.
Which quotes from itself.
From the Medici ruling. So it's noted in the Burbridge versus Mine Hill. This is in 1990 Supreme Court case.
And for those people who aren't unlucky enough to be lawyers or planners, what is the Medici case?
Yes, it basically establishes the framework for granting use variance.
And in the Medici case, what did the Supreme Court specifically say about the relationship between commercial uses and promoting general welfare? Could you read it to the board?
Sure. So it's, although certain commercial uses may inherently serve the general welfare in a particular community, the typical commercial use can be better described as a convenience to its patrons than as an inherent benefit to the general welfare. For such use, any benefit to the general welfare derives not from the use itself, but from the development of a site in a community that's particularly appropriate for that very enterprise.
So under Medici, is there any contribution to the general welfare for there to be a event center at this location?
No, it's not. Well, it's not a inherently beneficial,
Same
use,
question.
Yeah, but I don't think the applicant's claiming that any of their uses are inherently beneficial.
No, they're not.
We have not.
They're not,
Okay.
but they're claiming that under the municipal land use law is satisfied with this application.
Yeah, but
I would disagree with that as a planner. It's that what the Medici case did was set forward what special reasons are specifically for uses that are not inherently beneficial. So I think what Mr. McLean just said is true. It's that this is not inherently beneficial use. Most commercial uses are not, and that's what this case said. But it does not, just because something is not inherently beneficial, does not mean that an application cannot promote the general welfare. So it's kind of all kind of rolled into one, but it's different. They're not. I don't think that no one's claiming this is inherently beneficial.
Okay. Well, I guess it will, to that point, for the reasons that I just mentioned before in prior testimony, those are the reasons why I don't believe that this particular request for this event space and this other use, the coffee shop, are not, well, particularly the event space too, are not really advancing the general welfare and promoting the general welfare.
Or the
Yeah.
health, safety, or morals.
Right, correct.
All right. The next section referred to by the applicant's planner was,
Oh, yes,
C?
purpose C.
could you tell the board what that is?
This is to provide adequate light, air, and open space. Here, so the current development has taken place, as I noted, and it's increased the amount of impervious surface, as noted by our engineer in his testimony, Mr. Cheva's testimony. So it's been an increase in the pavement area. So with respect to open space, that development has resulted in some environmental impacts. So the next purpose E, is to promote the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations that will contribute to the well-being of persons, neighborhoods, communities, and regions, and the preservation of the environment. So this purpose is typically cited for residential developments. I find it kind of strange that in the context of the current proposal is the non-agricultural commercial use, since it's clear that the applicant is seeking to increase the number of patrons while well beyond what was planned for the previous nursery operation.
Is it your opinion that the proposed use would also be well beyond what there would be if this were developed as a residential site?
Yeah, yes, it is well beyond, a residential project, considering the intensity of the, that's being proposed here with the various uses.
Okay, what's the next letter?
The plans report also mentions purpose G, to provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of agricultural, residential, recreational, commercial, and industrial uses, and open space for both public and private, according to their respective environmental requirements in order to meet the needs of all New Jersey citizens. As noted in earlier testimony, current and proposed uses are very much inconsistent with the agricultural uses permitted in the RA-15 zoning district and the previous flower nursery. Furthermore, as demonstrated by all the previous witnesses, I fail to see how the current and proposed uses would be appropriate for this particular property that is also surrounded by so many sensitive noise receptors.
So what do you mean by noise receptors?
The residential homes, the single-family homes that are to the north and east and south of the applicant's property.
Okay. And what's next?
You see purpose I, providing a desirable visual environment through the creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangements. Since the applicant's redevelopment has already resulted in adverse impacts in the map transition area of the surrounding wetlands and the noise impacts to surrounding properties from the event space use pending any formal approval. I do not agree that the work already performed and is being proposed would be considered a good civic design and arrangement for the property. Finally, the plans report mentions purpose M for encouraging the coordination of various public and private procedures and activities shaping land development with the view of lessening the cost of such development and to a more efficient use of land. The approval of the proposed project would result in an over-intensification of land well beyond what was envisioned in the town's zoning ordinance for the RA-15 zoning district. So those are...
All right. Now, let's turn to the request for the variances themselves and the positive and negative criteria. First, I will ask you for a second time, when you prepared your own report and testimony, did you read Mr. Tobias' report?
I did, yes.
And did you listen to his testimony, his planning testimony from the meeting in August?
I did, yes.
So Instead of me making argument, let me ask you a question, which is, was a presentation made to the board as to why there should be a use variance for a garden center?
I do not recall such a presentation.
So you have nothing to rebut in that regard?
No.
All right.
The understanding is that it was there, as Mr. Cali noted, that it was there. There were permits that were pulled lawfully, as he noted, as he stated. But I mean, yes, I haven't seen any. I didn't see any previous variance being authorized for that use.
Well, the question not whether it was authorized. The question was whether the applicant's case presented positive and negative criteria in terms of the garden center itself.
Right. No, I did not. Yeah.
All right. Let's turn to what they did present. Let's talk about the event space. Before we get there, and there's already been discussion about this Medici case, could you just briefly give an overview of what Medici requires an applicant to show in order to get a use variance?
So as I noted before, it requires obviously a positive, negative criteria analysis, where you're supposed to, sorry, what do I have here? Demonstrate site suitability. And when you're talking about site suitability, you're talking about demonstrating context and that the physical characteristics of the property and the proposal complement the property, and also special reasons which speak to the purposes of the municipal land use law. Usually is relying on demonstrating that the proposal promotes the general welfare of the community.
What is your analysis of the event space in terms of the negative criteria and the positive criteria? Let's break them down into two questions. First, could you address to the board your analysis of how the event space works in terms of the negative criteria?
Sure. So the negative criteria, an applicant has to demonstrate that, a variance can be granted if an applicant can demonstrate that there'll be no detriment to the public good and no substantial impairment to the zoning plan or the zoning ordinance. As I mentioned earlier, regarding the impacts to the environmental impacts to the wetlands, the amount of impervious surface that the civil engineer had noted in his testimony, and what was submitted to the board regarding noise, I can't see how that the proposed event space would result in a promotion of the how it couldn't result in an impact to the public good.
Is your opinion influenced by Mr. Vieira's testimony and the video that he showed?
It is, and also by the sound engineer. I guess I'll speak to the impairment to the zone plan and zoning ordinance.
Sure.
I've already gone over the uses for the RA 15 zoning district, but I do want to submit to the record the goals of the goals of the master plan. The first goal of the township's master plan calls for the preservation of residential character of a community, in which the reexamination report acknowledges that, quote, largely low-density residential character of the community, the preservation of the largely low-density residential character of the community, while also recognizing that there is, quote, would continue to be the infill development of residential uses as permitted under the current zoning. Also, the fourth goal of the township's master plan calls for the maintenance of existing commercial areas and restrictions on new commercial development, which the 2017 master plan report Master 2017 reexamination report noted that at the time the report was prepared, quote, there would be no dramatic increase in the township population necessitating the expansion of commercial areas to serve new growth. So based on a 5-year census analysis, the 2017 estimated population for Morris Township was 22,261 residents, which increased to an estimated count of 23,507 residents. This is an increase of 5.6% or 1,246 residents. So it's my assessment that this would not trigger the need for a dramatic increase or the expansion of commercial areas in the township.
Do you have anything else that you want to add in terms of your negative criteria analysis?
I do not.
All right, let's turn then to the positive criteria. Am I being simplistic to say that positive criteria, you have to give particular reasons that the site should go where the applicant wants it to go? Is that a fair summary?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, because it's not an inherently beneficial use, we know that.
Right.
All right. So what is your analysis then of the particular suitability of this site for, let's just stick with an event center?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I noted before, the testimony from the previous witnesses regarding noise and the impacts to the adjacent wetlands. When you have the number of receptors looking down Prospect Place and also the other surrounding single-family homes, I don't believe that this property is particularly well suited. I know that the applicant's planner had mentioned several other sites that he thought were comparable to the subject property, the applicant's property. But this is there are just a number of single-family residential homes that would be impacted, and that's the reason why they are here and submitting opposition testimony.
If we consider this, because the site right now has no history,
Yeah.
if we consider it to be blank land, an empty field,
Mm-hmm.
in your opinion, is this a suitable place for an event center?
If you're saying that there weren't,
There's nothing.
there's,
It's blank, it's an open field, zoned RA, residential. Is it suitable for an event center?
I would say no, because I think the zoning ordinance makes it pretty clear. It wants that the governing body and the planning board saw this area is for single-family homes, and they even went so far as to say that we're talking about non-residential uses. It pointed to farmland, and also that's the character and the impression that was left. And when you look at the master plan and the reexamination report, it's seeking to preserve that character, that low density character.
All right. Let me ask the same question for a garden center. Again, given that, as far as we're concerned, there's nothing on this property and it has no history, is this property particularly suitable for a garden center?
It's not something that's identified in the ordinance. I'm sure you can make the argument, and I'm certain that they have made the argument that this is comparable to the previous use, which is a nursery. So it's not that far off, but it's going to. It's a very different business model in terms of it's a retail operation. It's not focusing on agriculture.
I'm asking a different question.
Yeah.
As far as this board is concerned, this is a total D1 application.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing on the ground. It's a brand new D1 with all these different uses.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, if there's nothing on the ground, is a garden center particularly suitable, or is this locale particularly suited for a garden center?
So I would say no.
Okay. Now, let me ask this. Assuming that somehow we have a garden center, and now we need a coffee shop to support it, is this particular site particularly suitable for a coffee shop?
I mean, it's making a further argument that it's less suitable for such an operation.
You know, the applicant's planning report says that the site is particularly suitable because no physical expansion of any building is proposed.
Right.
So in other words, here are these buildings and they'll do something in the building, but they don't have to build out the building. Does that have any impact on your analysis of whether the positive criteria for this site are satisfied?
No, because I think they made it pretty clear in their testimony that the event usage would not be restricted to just the second floor of that existing building, would be outside in the rear yard. So there would be some noise generated, and that would be impacting surrounding properties.
All right. Let me note something else that the applicant's planner says. He says, maybe I'm better off quoting it. Oh, you have my report. Here. On page 10, paragraph 5. I'll read it.
Yeah.
The proposed event space will cover 2,173 square feet of floor area. The coffee shop will cover 1,720 square feet of space. Both pale in comparison to the overall size of the garden center, which covers a total of 18,212 square feet. Now, before I go to what I was going to ask about that, let me say that given that the garden center itself needs a D1 variance, what they're really saying here is that the board is being asked to approve 18,212 square feet of non-conforming uses, correct?
Correct. Right.
Now, going back to the applicant's point though, which presumed the garden center, I maintain, does the fact that the event space and that the coffee shop together are roughly 25% in size compared to the garden center, 25%. Does that have any impact on whether the coffee shop and event space are particularly suited for this lot?
No. At the end of the day, it's, we really don't know, how important each of these operations are in terms of their overall ability to function. So it could be,
Let me ask you this. Let's say that the board approves this application in total. And so there is now an event space, the garden center, and a coffee shop, and a gift shop, and all the site improvements. All those then become lawful non-conforming uses, correct? Is that right? Is that how it works?
correct, yeah.
All right, so there is nothing,
I would disagree with that. What did you just?
I said, don't they then become all lawful non-conforming uses?
They become, you said if the application is approved?
Yes.
No, they become uses that were approved by D variance. They are no longer non-conforming. They're approved by D variance.
Well, the lawful uses, yeah.
Let's make it easier. They are then lawful uses.
Yes.
And what that would mean is that, am I correct, Mr. McLean, that in the future, either this applicant or any other potential owner of the site could come back before this board and say, I know that the applicant agreed to certain conditions in 2026, but we don't think they're good. We can't make it with 48 people. We need 100. We can't make it going only till 10 o'clock. We have to go to 11.
Yeah, and we are not here to evaluate a applicant's business plan.
Or it's really just all conjecture, right? So if there was an approved plan, and if at some point in the future they wanted to change that plan, yes, they have to come back here. But it's not relevant to like the plan that's currently pending before the board. We all know if they're going to change it, they have to come back.
You know, and Mr. Chairman, may I add before they continue? We were told by Mr. Rosenbach, their planner needed 30 minutes. We're going on nearly an hour now. We've got 25 minutes of recall testimony in total between 3 to 4 witnesses.
Well, we're gonna, we can
asked
move
that
it
they-
along, it'd be great, but let's move it along.
We're moving along.
Okay.
Maybe a minute, right?
Well, now we've got a 10-second
Well, they-
pause.
Okay.
I didn't realize that the rule limited me to a certain amount of time.
Okay, now, come on, let's just move on. Let's not argue about how much time we're taking, because we're taking more time. Let's
And
talk.
Mr. Chair, I would like to address something you said, which is that the chairman did not put their financial condition in play. That's exactly what they did in this application, and is what I want to respond to next, and it's what I have left, if I may.
But even if they put their financial condition in play for that, we don't evaluate business plans. We evaluate uses.
Correct.
So again, I would say.
So
relevant
let's
on that.
just move on, and we can talk about that in argument at the conclusion, not at this point.
Thank you.
That's what closing statements are for.
Well, I have a question for my planner. On page 11, paragraph 4
Right.
of the applicant's planner report, it says, and I will read it, short, not keeping up with the Home Depots of the marketplace can have disastrous results. As major garden center operators such as Cedar Grove Garden Center and the Fairfield Garden Center have gone out of business in recent years. And is that not part of the applicant's assertion to the board that these additional uses, pardon me, the coffee shop and the event center, are being requested in order to better secure the financial success of the garden center?
I believe so, yeah.
Again, presuming that the garden center is lawfully there in the first place. But these other uses, again, they're to support the garden center, right?
Mhm.
All right. Is it the function of this board to grant variances in order to support somebody's commercial operations?
No, it's not.
And that was never sought, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and if I recall, the testimony along those lines was that garden centers are evolving into, say, multi-use type of centers. I think that was the
The
purpose.
exact descriptive
Right.
word, evolving.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yes, in fact, we were told that the Glendale Forest Center had been a mom and pop operation and time had passed it by. That's what we were told. Meaning that this board should relax zoning because the business model has changed.
Well,
That's how I hear it.
that's the argument. We're not arguing, we're asking questions now.
Yeah, so, and I guess on that point, this notion of an evolving use, it can certainly lead to a slippery slope. You're like, okay, well, this particular type of commercial use is evolving, so we have to just make some allowances. You basically make, I think it's a kind of really a dangerous argument here, because you're inviting the possibility of potentially a whole range of other, it's not a natural pairing of an event center with a garden center. It's not, it's I don't go to a Home Depot thinking that, oh, maybe they sell potted plants, so maybe they can host a party. It's a natural assumption.
Mr. McLean, I know you had a few exhibits and I never called on you to show any. Do you think you have to show any to the board now, or have you covered what you wanted to cover?
I think that the board has, has seen it, has had enough testimony.
All right, and I have asked you a bunch of questions. Is
Yeah.
there any other opinion that you have reached that somehow I have not yet asked you?
No, I think that covers everything.
Then I have no further questions.
Thank you. Do you have any other witnesses?
No.
Okay.
Right,
Larry, do you have any cross for this?
Well, does the board members have any questions?
Okay.
Board members have any questions?
No.
I have
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Your commentary about the impervious, which you referenced many times, was that based on prior meetings or the report that we've seen from the engineer today? Have you looked at that?
That was based off of the testimony from Mr. Chesvet from March 5th.
Have you looked at the report that's been issued, that we've seen today? I think the work was done 2 days ago.
I have not, no.
Okay, thank you.
Now, this was an existing garden center to the extent that it grew flowers, had greenhouses, and sold the flowers, correct?
Yeah, it was a nursery, yeah. Mhm.
So one of the criteria, G, that Mr. Toby had brought up is that it's not expanding the commercial areas of the township, but this is an existing commercial area, correct?
Well, it's not. It's a single family residential area and it
No,
speaks to
I'm saying
farms, yeah.
the property itself.
Yeah.
Not the zoning, the
Okay.
property itself is an existing commercial area.
Yes, it was, yeah.
Okay. And it has the greenhouses already there.
But they're not being used to grow flowers. It's
But
just, it's a
it had
host
but it had the aura of a garden center, correct?
yes.
Okay. So would, this would be an appropriate location for a garden center, given the existing past use as a commercial entity?
Yes, you can certainly make that argument that it's,
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Nothing for the witness, Mr. Chairman. We'll have a very brief recall of Mr. Tobia shortly.
Just, any members of the public have any questions of this witness?
Yeah.
If you do, turn up to the microphone and ask your question. You guys can share.
Right there.
no,
There we go.
okay.
I just have, I have a one question.
Okay, you gotta give your
Oh,
name
I'm sorry.
and address.
Beth Fissel, 5 Catalpa Road, Morris Township.
Would you spell your last name, please?
F as in Frank, I, double S as in Sam, E-L. My maiden name was easier.
Okay.
Question, you referenced noise receptors?
Yes.
How many noise receptors are opposed to this?
I don't know. the number of
Project.
nodes. I'm just citing the number of residential homes in the area. So you have, I think it's about 6 surrounding homes.
Right,
Single-family
but
homes.
you'd said that it was going to, so I figured that you knew how many.
I live across the street. So.
No.
No. You can't
So-
just shout
You
out from
can
the
ask
audience.
questions
That was my
later,
question.
but not from there.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else with questions? This wit-
Yeah, I have a question.
Come on up, identify yourself and ask your question.
So my
And your
major
name?
thing, my name is Jenna Padavano, Padavano. I live at 378 South Street. My major question is a lot of this planning and all of the noise and everything that was done, it seems from what I've looked at is from 2025. Since then, we've now had extended hours on the pickleball, so there's that noise. And then also corporate, where from Morristown Medical Center now has shuttles running all night.
Is there a question?
So that's what when the proposed plan was made, was all of that taken into consideration, the things that have changed most recently?
This is a question for the man who just testified.
Not for us.
You can ask right now.
But isn't this, I mean, I'm just confused on where.
Your questions are supposed to be directed to this witness.
Oh, it's not,
concerning-
well, it's directed towards the whole plan.
Well, then
Okay.
we'll have that later.
Okay, I'll come back.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. Any other questions of this witness concerning his testimony? All right, seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion. We're going to take 5 minutes and then you can come back on.
We're not even gonna leave our seats, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have any other witnesses?
No, he said no.
Okay. 5-minute recess. I'd like to call back to order the special meeting of the Morris Township Board of Adjustment for April 15th, 2026. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Goldberg.
Here.
Mr. Trachtenberg.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Schuster.
Here.
Mr. Benoit.
Here.
Mr. Kramer.
Here.
Mr. Woodford.
Here.
And Mr. Oler.
Still here.
Mr. Voich.
Here.
And Ms. Keller.
Here.
And our alternates.
And our alternates, Ms. Simmons.
Here.
And Mr. Evangel.
Okay. Your show.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to go as quick as we reasonably can. If you need to slow down, you please tell me to do so. Our batting order intends to be a very limited recall of Mr. Tobia, who's already sworn and qualified as a professional planner.
Sorry, Mr. Kelly, to speak up.
Sure. Very limited recall of Mr. Tobia, then go to the balance of 3 witnesses. I think in total, we need under 25 minutes of direct to conclude our case in chief, Mr. Chairman. That's our intent and goal, is to do so this evening. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Tobia, who was sworn and qualified. Mr. Earl, I don't know if we need to.
I will swear you again. Would you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And your, again, name for the record, please.
Michael Tobia, 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 the applicant's planning consultant. And still licensed, still under oath. Nice to see everyone again. So let me do this quickly because I did testify last about, I think, August 5th of last year. Okay. We explained this is indeed a D1 variance. We acknowledge it could cover the whole site. When I testified nearly a year ago, I explained the one key driving force of the whole thing is that the garden center already exists. All the buildings, the parking lot, everything had to be vastly overhauled and improved. But the driving force behind this was the idea that we had legally existing buildings on the property that went back decades in a commercial and even industrial land use. We explained that retail sales did in fact take place on the property for decades before it went out of business. I was one of the customers, I know, okay? We explained the event space is one way of reimagining the garden center. The whole reason I brought up Home Depot, Costco, Lowe's, and all that is that the garden center business has changed dramatically. If you're going to be a garden center trying to sell rose bushes and azalea plants and so on and keep up with the big boxes, you are going out of business these days. It's changed dramatically from where it was a bunch of years ago. So the whole idea of diversification was to stabilize the use and recognize that things change. That's what the Zoning Board of Adjustment is all about, recognizing changed circumstances that could not be anticipated by your master plan. This is one of those changed circumstances. Even Glendale went out of business, okay? The place in Cedar Grove went out of business, Fairfield went out of business, Coviello's over in Madison all folded. These are generally smaller type operations when compared to the big boxes. We explained the event space had a lot of activities that were really linked to a garden center. And I'm going to go through a couple of them with you, such as workshops for floral design and gardening, wreath making, weddings, decor workshops, garden club meetings are just a few of them, okay? But the idea was try and bring other interests into this type of arena where we know people are going to buy plants, buy flower material, buy patio furniture, and so on. So the link there does meet the particular suitability test, okay? We explained that this site was a blight on the neighborhood. It should be acknowledged that residential land uses surround the site. It should also be acknowledged that commercial land uses populate South Street as well. Southgate Parkway, you all did the doggy daycare center with me about a year ago. That's now open. You have a medical office building on the street. You have Schoolhouse Plaza. It's a mixed use street. Nevertheless, we're not supposed to have blighted properties on the street. Glendale was never abandoned. It was vacant, went out of business, but that doesn't mean we gave up everything that was on the site before. This applicant does promote the public good. They have put as a family $5 million into the renovation, rehabilitation, and overall improvement on the site. I hope everyone's been out to the property now. It's about as good looking as a garden center can get these days. If there have been minor problems with site plan conformance and what's out in the field now, we will fix those to get them consistent with the site plan that will be approved. I want to talk to you about my travels to Pennsylvania, the Jersey Shore, Totowa, and other locations, J&M Garden Center. The whole point of that testimony wasn't that those uses should influence the board as to size and style of the South Street Gardens. It was to point out that other garden centers in the region are making adjustments also to diversify
innovate, and do a little bit more than just sell plant material. All of the ones I mentioned were doing things like musical events, flower shops, Christmas shops, even lunch and dinner facilities, just to diversify. That's why they were all brought up, okay? When I mentioned the modest expansion, it's true that the event space on a mathematical basis is about 14.9% of the overall proposed build-out. And the garden center and the coffee shop, I think I had at 9%. Those are just the physical comparisons of those two uses to the overall space, which goes about 18,000 feet. Recall, though, the event space is only going to be open 4 to 7 times a week. So it's not like it's going to be open all the hours that the gift shop is open or all the hours that the garden center is open. Recall also, please, the coffee shop is a place that sells coffee, but it's also a building that will be retail sales, which is part of the garden center use. So you can go in there and get a cup of tea. You can also pick up a plant and go over to the cash register. So there's a linkage there between the so-called coffee shop and the overall garden center. It seems to me these days everybody's selling coffee. You know, even my hairdresser has coffee, and my bank is selling coffee or giving away coffee. I view that as an extremely minor ancillary part of the case. On the goals that we mentioned with the municipal land use law, talking about sufficient space in appropriate locations makes sense here. The garden center has been around for years. Every homeowner in the area post-dates whatever Glendale was, because it went back so long, 100 years, I think, by one estimate from one of the witnesses. It is an appropriate use of the site because it's simply not going away. If it did go away, we know what was proposed for it as a hypothetically vacant piece of parcel, 20 to 40 townhouses or apartments, condos, things like that. It probably would have been included in your most recently adopted housing element. I think this is the better zoning alternative for the site to recognize that it's been around so long, $5 million going to the property, and it looks great now. Incidentally, the applicant is also, as we talk about negative criteria, planted 150 perimeter plantings, mostly evergreen, to enhance privacy around the whole property, and to try and be a good neighbor. Impervious coverage went down on our site plan calculations. It's actually been reduced from what was out there before. We're going to have our engineer up in a minute to talk more about that. Another thing I pointed out is the event space and the coffee shop take place in existing buildings. So we have a really unusual use variance case here where we're not talking about adding new buildings. It's a very, very rare application in the D1 field. The event space is on the second floor of the gift shop under the existing gable, and the coffee shop is in an old broken down building that used to be a boiler room for the whole facility. And it just sits there vacant right now. So we're improving those spots. We're not adding physical massing to the site in terms of buildings. We explained to you a long while ago, we meet parking. We're going to go over some conditions with you all later, but we meet the parking requirement in the zone. We've arranged for all traffic to come out to Pear Street, not around the corner to Whitney, if you recall. These are some ways we were trying to address the negative criteria. Footprint, we believe, has not changed or will not change. Maybe we have to make some minor corrections. We'll see. And in the end, when you look at this, your test under law is what's being proposed a substantial detriment to the public good. And my testimony was and is, this has only been a substantial improvement to the area. We're going to give you some ways to protect our concerned neighbors through conditions. We're going to do that a little bit later on. But the conclusion is this is not a substantial detriment. Minor detriments don't count. Okay, the law says it's got to be substantial. And the law also says you must have a substantial impairment to your zone plan. Except this use has been around before we ever had zoning or master plans. So it predates all that. And this is why we have a board of adjustment. You got to fix things up. You got to make adjustments. And that's what we think we're doing here. So that's it in 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman. I don't usually limit my testimony to 5 minutes, but I did my best. If you have any questions, I'll answer them.
Board members, any questions? Seeing none, here none?
Well, Mr. Chair, one second, Mr. Tobia. What's your remedy again for the noise? Noise is a,
It's a legit question. Mr. Williams, just hold on a second. Our next witness or 2 witnesses from now?
3 witnesses from now.
3 witnesses
It's
from
going to be
now.
a quick 3 witnesses.
We
Our
have-
acoustic engineer will be testifying.
Okay.
okay.
We will have that done for you.
Okay. Any other questions from board members? Mr. Rosenbusch?
Mr. Tobias, first I want to clarify a factual matter, if I may.
Ms. Tobia.
Pardon me.
Ms. Tobia, it sounds so nice.
We haven't worked together, so forgive me.
Go ahead, it's all right.
All right, Mr. Tobia.
All right, go ahead.
Rosenbach. Last year, because this application has been going on for a while, you testified that the family has put $4 million into the property, and today you testified it's been $5 million. Have they put another $1 million in
The answer
since?
is yes, yeah, they continue to make improvements to the property.
All right, now, aside from you giving the board that number, have you seen any accounting of those figures?
No, I don't
No.
check receipts.
What's the relevance of how much money they put into it?
Well, the applicant keeps raising it. I don't.
Well, let's then move on.
Okay. Secondly, how many proposed distinct uses are there on this property based on this application?
Okay, good question. We have always viewed it as one umbrella use to be operated entirely by the Bruin family with these little admittedly separate departments like the home shop and so on. But it's one use, one sign, one use, one management.
I see. So if the Bruins under an umbrella management had a shoe store, a delicatessen, a garden center, an event center, a video arcade, those would all be one use to you.
So the answer is that's a fact-sensitive question. We don't know how they would be divided, if there'd be separate units in the building and so on. All I know is what we're proposing here as a condition of approval is that everything will be run by this group, the Bruin family behind me, no third-party rentals, no sublets, everything gets run by the family.
So let me ask you, I mean, you're here as a professional planner. If I on a site have a Burger King, I'm the owner, and I end up with a Dairy Queen franchise, and I put my Dairy Queen franchise right next to the Burger King, that doesn't need a use variance because it's one use?
Yeah, that's hypothetical. Let's stick,
This is what's happening here. There are these distinct uses that this planner is saying is one use. I get the
well,
question.
no, he's saying that they're going in for an application for approval for all of these different variations of this use. What you're saying is you've got one use and now you're putting in a whole new one in an adjacent location. Yes, you're going to have to come in and get an approval for that.
I'm saying that today they're coming in for more than one use. There's no such thing as a garden center, which is some entity that happens to have an event space and a coffee shop and so on. An event space is a separate use, and I would like him to concede that.
Well, he's not.
Let me, if you don't mind, I'm not going to concede it. Listen, Burger King and what'd you say, Dairy Queen?
Yeah.
Those are separate entities, separate companies and all that. The whole point of this was linkage between these proposed uses, such as the event space and the overall garden space. Like flower arrangement as one possible workshop that could take place upstairs is inherently linked to what else is going on the site. And as I said, the coffee shop in the smaller building is going to be retail. They're going to have plants all over that space anyway. So it's merged again with the retail sales thing. I don't view this as separate uses. We never have, and that's why we've been careful to explain we're not having a separate company run the event space or the coffee shop. It's just the family.
Yeah, and I would agree, as the board's planner, I think that's the position that we've been taking, and that's something that as a D1 variance, this provides this board a specific opportunity for that because of the fact that the applicant has come here with a specific use. They have a site plan that shows how much square footage is devoted to each use. They've given operation statements. They've potentially given conditions, and that's what the board is approving. It doesn't mean that, you know, that someone could just come in like this is one umbrella use, and that but it is that use is everything that's been testified to and everything that is on the site plan. And I think that that's something that's fairly common with D variances because of the fact that you do tend to get, you know, sometimes more obscure uses that were not specifically identified in the zoning. So this is not the first time this has come up. And I think that, you know, this board is aware of that distinction. And again, that's what the resolution, that's what the site plans are for. If this were to be approved, everything is recorded and everything will be held to what was stated.
Thank you.
Just, if you know, and if you don't know, you can just tell me. Do you know if within the ownership structure of this site, there are different affiliated corporations or entities that are running these different operations?
The corporate ownership disclosure statement was filed as part of the
Yeah,
application.
they're all owned by the same entity. At least that's what the application says.
That's not my question. My question is whether there are different corporate structures, whether there are different corporate entities within a corporate structure, regardless of them all being owned by the same
For a
person.
Project planner, it's irrelevant. It's not part of what is recall testimony involved. And again, the corporate ownership disclosure required by Title 40 is on file with the board, including all names and members broken down to 10%. And when you have a secondary entity, that too is broken down by 10%. That was filed about a year ago.
Well, I swear I was just told by Mr. Tobia that there's just one entity that's going to own all these, and I'm just questioning that. I don't see why I can't.
Again, I don't see the relevance. Well,
Yeah.
I think you can't because of the clock at this point. I think this is just an endeavor to kick tires a little bit.
Okay,
So,
it's really, if there's two different entities, the restrictions are going to be the same. If we approve this, any restrictions are going to be the same, whether it's one entity or another entity, or whether they create a new entity and transfer it.
Yeah, and I think most important, use variances run with the land.
They
Use
don't-
variances don't run with an entity.
Right.
Any entity in the future, if it was shared, if they were to split the ownership, everything would still have to be done in accordance with the approval. It runs with the land, not with the entity or the owner.
Okay, last topic. You've mentioned several times that even before zoning, this was being used for some, I'll say, commercial purpose. To your knowledge, was it simply a farm? Do you know that it was anything more?
So, I don't go back that far. I'm relying on other testimony that it was a greenhouse, with a shop up in front, and that it went on for decades.
Okay. And when you say relying on other testimony, whose testimony was that?
That was, that was that, I believe, Metro.
And so going back, the issue that I was raising about this being an all-encompassing D1, are you saying that for D1 analysis purposes, that although it's not a continuation of the use, you sort of get credit for the use anyway because it was already there?
I'm saying the practical reality is that it is there. And yeah, that's a reason we meet the particular suitability test. Is the site particularly suited to the use, right? Well, a use just like this was there for decades. So of course that helps meet that criteria.
Okay, but in that case, don't we get back to the question I raised earlier, which is your application has absolutely no proof that the prior use was a lawful use?
I don't think we ever covered that other than just how long it had been on the property.
I know you didn't cover it. You've assumed it.
Because of how long it had been on the property.
I think from a planning perspective, the particular suitability test refers to the fact that this was a commercial use. He's not bearing any judgment on whether it was a legal pre-existing non-conforming use. And I don't think the board needs to consider that. And I also, Mr. Toby, I would just take umbrage with the fact that you said that a use that was exactly like this one, it was not exactly like this one. It had a retail component and sold some similar things, but you would not be here if it was exactly like this one. You're here for a D1 variance.
I have nothing further.
Okay. Board professionals, any questions? Any members of the public with questions of Mr. Tobia?
I just have, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Mr. Tobia? Mr. Tobia, we covered a number of the uses tonight. We covered the garden center, the retail shop, the event space, the coffee house. I know throughout the application, there's been alluded to food trucks, right? There's a food truck currently on the site right now. And is that being operated and managed by the current owners, or is that a third party, or how does the food truck sort of play into this?
Food truck, we were in town hall, we meaning the applicant, got a permit for what's called a mobile food establishment. I think that's what it is. So we got the permit. It's on the property. There's a whole back and forth with the health officer. And that, I don't think Matt Bruin is in the food truck, operating the food truck. I'm pretty sure there's a separate person in there. Food truck's a separate business.
Yeah, it's a separate.
But it's ancillary and it's permitted. Anywhere in town, you can pull that permit.
So, excuse me, but on that point, Joe, can you verify that a permit was issued for that?
Yes, I can verify there's health inspections that were passed and the operation is permitted.
Okay.
I think there's a consideration here for, as Mr. Toby said, that's a permit that can be obtained for various locations. But I think it should be understood as part of the overall use of the property. And it's, I'd say, accessory or ancillary in nature to all of what's been proposed under D1.
But we still are free to say, yes, you can have food trucks, or no, you cannot have food trucks.
I think the distinction here would be the other uses, florist, home decor, coffee shop, garden center, event space, have been clearly defined. They've also been identified with timing restrictions for each use, and those uses are all under the management care of the owner and operator of the site.
Right.
The food truck, if it's a third party, I think it's worth understanding the expectations of the timing and the use, how many third parties may be on site on any given point.
Well,
And we can also say no
yes,
third parties.
yes.
Or it could be, right.
Right. I just want to know that
And
that's an option.
yes, I agree. And that's been discussed in other hearings on other matters with what we call points of sale, right?
Right.
Common points of sale of, say, two franchises inside of the same space, under
Right.
the same common ownership and management, and one point of sale, one books of the
Right.
company, or if this is a third party operating on the site.
Okay.
Yeah, Chairman Woodford, I mean, I agree with Joe said, there is separate township rules about, where food trucks can go, whether it meets the health department. But this is a D1 variance, and the board has the ability to issue conditions above and beyond. And if you don't think any food trucks are appropriate on this site, the board can say that. You can say food trucks can only be there for a certain amount of time. You have anything else. And also, I think that would also be part, that has been discussed at food truck. I remember that came up at a first hearing because I have to admit that I had some concerns with that because it sounded like a separate, it sounded like kind of like above and beyond. I know, especially given the scope and scale of the events that the applicant is trying to have here. And we'll get to that if we get to the point of discussing conditions, but this board does have the ability to regulate that.
Okay.
The mobile retail food establishment is defined under our Board of Health legislation in our code.
Right.
It's any movable restaurant, truck, van, trailer, cart, bicycle, or other movable unit, including hand-carried portable containers in or on which food or beverage is transported, stored, or prepared for retail sale or given away at temporary locations. There's inspections required prior to licensing, and sources of the products, potential hazards, violations, and penalties covered in that section of the code. But as was just discussed, I think the contemplation with the use variance, whether it is permitted and if there's any restrictions on it, is appropriate in the D1 use conversation.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I would have a follow-up question on that, which was the installation and the starting the use of the food truck a function of, because this, how long this was taking, because the coffee shop isn't up and running? Are they mutually exclusive, or that would maybe go away if the coffee shop were open, or is there any linkage to your point? Yeah.
Save that question, please, Mr. Goldberg, for
Okay.
Mr. Berwin, who's coming up next.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, board members, professionals? Seeing none, hearing none, next witness.
Thank you, sir. Our next witness is also a recall witness, Matt Bruin, who is a member of the applicant and ownership LLC. Matt previously testified as a lay witness and was sworn. We'll swear Matt in again. He'll answer that question, Mr. Goldberg, as well as give sort of a summary of what to the board after this long road to get to this point this evening.
Thank you. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And your name for the record?
My name is Matthew Bruin. Last name Bruin.
And Matt, you previously testified and identified your affiliation with the applicant entity. Your family are members of the applicant entity that control and own this property. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And I know you are hopeful to get back up here, excited to hopefully get up and running as desired, as the site plan shows and denotes on those plans and the uses that are proposed. And I know you wanted to get back in front of the board and say thank you and give a few parting words to them. And also, we have a question, so it's good timing for you, Mr. Goldberg, as well.
Absolutely. Members of the board, first, my family and I would like to thank you for your time and for your service to the community sitting here today. I would like to begin by addressing something that has been a little difficult to sit through during these past hearings. There's been repeated mischaracterizations of my family and our business. I want to take a moment to clarify who we are and what we stand for. We're a close-knit, family-run business that takes great pride in our work, our property, and most importantly, our community. At the core of everything we do is a simple principle: people come first. We treat every customer, neighbor, and visitor with respect, care, and genuine intention. We believe relationships matter more than transactions, and we are consistently going above and beyond to ensure that people feel welcomed and valued. Since beginning this project, we have made sincere effort to be good neighbors. We've introduced ourselves, maintained an open door, and welcomed conversations with anyone in the community who wanted to engage. That has always been our approach. In addition to investing in improving the existing structures on the property, we've taken significant steps to clean and restore the site itself. During construction, we've removed debris left behind by previous ownership, including garbage and abandoned equipment such as old tractors, an old RV, thousands of metal wreath rings, and other materials that accumulated over time. This was not just a construction project for us. It was a full restoration effort to bring the property back to life in a way that the community could be proud. While I do not want to dwell on conflict, it is important to acknowledge that some of the opposition has gone beyond disagreement. Mr. Vieira has at times trespassed onto our property and confronted and harassed members of our family, our staff, and has shouted at us and our patrons from the surrounding wood areas. These incidents, along with the broader pattern of behavior, are documented in police reports. I won't go any further on that. At the same time, there have been repeated statements that mischaracterize our business and our intentions. Despite this, we have remained focused on operating with professionalism, respect, and commitment to doing the things the right way. That is why we are here tonight. Change of use variance, that is why we are here. South Street Gardens is a realization of a long-standing family vision. I am proud to be working alongside my parents, my siblings, and my two sister-in-laws and building something meaningful here. My family has been in the landscaping industry for over 30 years, and this project represents a natural evolution of what that experience is in the form of a new business you now know as South Street Gardens. From the beginning, our goal has been to recreate how the previous business, Glendale, used to do business. The industry itself has shifted. Today, successful garden centers offer not just products, but an experience. That is exactly what we've worked to build, a place where people can spend time, gather, and connect, all in the nursery garden industry. Importantly, the principal use has not changed. We are and will remain a nursery garden center. The request before you does not alter that foundation. What we are seeking is the ability to thoughtfully enhance that experience through two complementary elements: a small cafe component and an event space for intimate community-oriented gatherings. These additions are not separate from our business. They support it. They encourage people to spend time on the property, to engage more deeply with what we offer, and then return. Providing a space to enjoy a coffee or a light bite while shopping, or hosting small gatherings on a setting we have already created aligns directly with how modern garden centers operate successfully. We believe that granting this variance relief would not only support our business, but would also provide positive benefit to the broader community. It creates a welcoming destination, encourages local engagement, and enhances the character of the area in a thoughtful and responsible way. Before I close, I would like to read a review from one of our patrons. Such an amazing addition to Morristown. South Street Gardens isn't just a garden center. From endless stunning fountains to exquisite planters, unique and extremely healthy
So, Mr.
plants.
Kelly, I'm not going to permit the review. Sorry. It's just complete hearsay. I mean, we have a lot of
Regardless
leeway on
of
the rules of
hearsay, this-
evidence, but that's just hearsay. We're not going to hear it.
Well, it's someone describing the property, and ironically, that was actually a review from Eric Vieira on July 18th. It just so happens to supposedly be one of the residents who is opposing the application. That review has since been taken down. Our plan has not changed. Our vision has evolved, and that is why we are here tonight. Hypothetically speaking, someone characterized our business as peaceful and serene, and if you're having a bad day, to go there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
it's the same
really.
thing with the
You
reviews.
can't say, you
Just-
can't bring in, we have no idea who that person is, where they're from, what their line is.
I'm just saying, someone.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. It's hearsay.
Okay.
You
So
mentioned
other than that,
it-
thank you for your consideration, and
Okay.
if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, I got a question,
Don't forget, we still have Mr. Goldberg's question to ask for.
but I've got a question right off. You talked about your family's been in the landscaping business. Do you intend to have landscaping materials on site such as mulch, stone, wood chips? Are you going to be storing any of that on site?
It is a completely different business operation. Bruin and Sons has a shop in Bernardsville and an office actually a couple doors up from South Street Gardens. They are two completely different business entities.
They're two different entities, but are they going to store anything there?
Well, nursery, not Bruin and Sons, nursery garden center materials are similar to landscape material. It is,
So do we have any, on the plans that have been submitted, do we have areas where these items are going to be stored?
there's no plans for that.
So you're not going to have those materials on site, like in bulk, when they show.
In bays and things like that.
Yeah, in bays or you put them on a front end loader, put them in the back of the truck and you deliver it to somebody's house.
Not to our knowledge, we have a
You're
yard in
not gonna do
Bernardsville
that.
for.
The question is, you're not going to do it,
We're
right?
not going to do it. That's not on the
Okay.
site plan. We're following the site plan as proposed to you here
Okay,
tonight.
I just want to make sure of that.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
So, hi there. Thank you for coming back and coming to all of these. So I think, we understand, your family is you're seeking to take this place that was formerly a florist with a greenhouse, et cetera. I think that everyone is, as far as the board planner, and it's not, I don't want to speak for the board, but I think we understand that. I think, what the objectors have said and what we've seen with our own eyes, from their presentation and from, your Instagram, et cetera, is really the events. And, we understand, if you don't get this approval, that those events will not be able to continue. But I just want to confirm that you would be amenable to reasonable conditions put forth by this board that would deal with things like, so to be honest, some of these things are not the easiest to enforce, like, maximum number of attendees, but there is a fire code, the type of noise, the sound, because, I think that's somewhat from what has been going on the property, I think we'd be looking for additional enhanced conditions over that. So I just want to be sure that you understand that and that those would be enforced as part of the site plan approval.
Absolutely.
A couple more questions. There was mention of spotlights on the buildings.
All of the lighting on the buildings is in compliant, from what I understand, with town code. The light, I think, that is being complained about with regard to our opposers is a JCP&L light that is actually on a telephone pole.
That's not true at all.
And
Okay.
the lights, to my knowledge, the lights are actually on sensors regardless, so they would only trigger if there is a motion.
Just hold on, you can't just shout out things, please. Would you be amenable to having all the lights with, so that they would project downwards and not out?
The lights that we have do project downward, to my knowledge, but we would be amendable to any conditions that the board would provide with us.
And we work with Mr. Gooch's office on that to make sure they're down shielded appropriately in the splash.
So everything will be dark sky compliant?
And to,
And if there is, a post-approval look-back required, we have no objection to that being part of it, 6 months from when we're operational under the approved conditions, if this were approved.
Yeah, I would, and that is to say that if before a CO, before permits are issued, the the only lights that would be permitted on the property would be exactly what is shown on the site plan, including the specs and the details. So, that includes, the inspector township would confirm what's the, whether it is JCP&L, et cetera. But, the site, the lighting plan would be exactly what was constructed. So, and then that's not something that needs to even go in the resolution because that's just how things are done.
Right.
So.
Okay. Mr. Goldberg, your question.
Well, would you like me to re-ask the question to you about the food truck?
Yeah, please, that would be helpful.
Okay, so the food truck is there. Is the reason the food truck is there because that's part of a permanent plan, or was that put there to service your current customers, given that the coffee shop is not there? So is it a function of, how long this has taken? That's why the food truck is there, and is that planned to stay there to support the coffee shop, or just speak to us about the food truck?
The food truck is ironically also owned and operated by the Bruin family. I think that should be noted too here for this case, but it is a temporary trailer, pending the approval of our cafe here. The anticipation would be removed from the property. So yes, to temporarily.
Okay. Mr. Goldberg, that's a really important question because if that was something you wanted to keep on the property, that would have to be part of this application.
Yeah, so this is temporary.
Because the way that food trucks were previously discussed, and again, we're going back 8 months or so, would be hiring one for an afternoon for an event or something like that.
Correct.
And the other thing I want to note is, I just took a very quick glance. It appeared, that food truck cooks food, cooks breakfast sandwiches. You're cooking there. You're not going to be doing that in the accessory cafe that's part of this proposed use, correct? You will have light pastries, things of that nature, but you'll not be making bacon, egg, and cheeses.
I would say food would be provided in the cafe.
But there would be no commercial kitchen, right?
That was the previous testimony.
Yes.
Was there's no food being made on site. You might reheat
Yes.
something, but there's no food preparation on site.
Well, as the conditions would impose, we would follow those conditions.
Because that's a totally different, just also in terms of not just use, but also in terms of what you would have to do for the building and the site
Right.
to have a fully approved commercial kitchen. Because that, again, yes, like serving, warming, things of that nature. That's how it was described to us, which is very typical of either standalone or, coffee shop inside another store. I agree, we see them everywhere. But this is, and I know this all probably sounds very specific to you, but this is what this board does. We, especially when you come to us with, these uses that I know they're not new. I've been to several places on the list that Mr. Tobia provided. But, this is a specific site. It's in a residential neighborhood. And it wasn't always a residential property. But so we need to know as for the board and so also for the township enforcement purposes, what's going on here. So that's why we're asking all these questions. And the best thing to do would just be honest. If, and I'm not accusing you of not being honest. I just know that not everybody always knows what all your future plans are going to be. If you think the food truck might stay, just say that right now, and that'll may save you some time. But because everything you say here is part of the record and will be part of the testimony.
That's a very good point. So Matt, what is the envision, and now granted, this is a small ancillary part of the operation, but what is going back to Mr. Goldberg, led with this question, and I'm glad the board continued the dialogue. What is the envisioned scope of what food preparation is anticipated and proposed to be offered on this property under approved conditions?
So under the approved conditions, we would follow the conditions that are outlined here in the approval. And to the holiday, I will look back at the holiday time. We had a hot chocolate vendor who has an approved food truck, took out a permit and accompanied us on the courtyard, and Santa Claus visited. People were offered hot chocolate. So I think it is important to note that different food trucks offer different services during different times and seasons. So I think the temporary nature of these food trucks would be used to accompany the seasonality of our business. And we would follow the conditions outlined here in the approval.
Okay, so maybe I missed it before, but I thought you said there would be no food trucks. Or are you saying only on the temporary use?
The permanent.
Their personal,
It's not intended to be permanent, it's temporary.
but there will be other that you will. I know that you may not run these other ones, but you, your business, you would be the ones hiring them. And
Yes. We would be hiring and overseeing
That's
that.
what was testified to previously,
Right.
which is that for events, but it was more, like I said, it was more like for exactly
Mhm.
what you were talking about.
Mhm.
And I understand that, food trucks those could cook potentially. That's a totally different step than a permanent
Right.
kitchen. But we just want to know, a food truck for special events is different than a food truck that is there from 8 to 4, Monday through
Mhm.
Saturday for months at a time.
So then there would be separate permits issued by the municipality for
Everyone
those
would have
every
to,
time?
yes.
So there are temporary retail food establishment by days, essentially. So
You mean by
those
limitation?
vendors, those food truck operators would separately register for the events, the events they're hired for, and be inspected for those dates of service,
Okay.
right? That would then expire as like basically a special
Right.
event permit
Right.
under the health department code. To the benefit of the board's understanding and the record, there were prior discussions with the health department about the food trucks. Mr. Bruin just testified that there was hot cocoa and coffee vendors on site during the holidays. That was known to the health department. It was inspected. It was registered temporary, basically the special events that they're contemplating under the D1 use request now. The truck that is there on site currently, as they indicated, is a temporary nature until this matter is concluded. That truck, once it's removed, if it was to come back, it'd be on a special event basis.
If we allowed it.
Right, if allowed, as part of their prior desire for it for special events.
Okay. And what about, is there a limitation of the number of trucks per event?
I think that's up to this board.
Not under the health department's code.
Okay.
It would be a contemplation of the zoning considerations of this board on this application.
Right. Okay. So for discussion.
So Matt, taking the food trucks out of the equation, the special permit ones, the one-off ones that are coming from day, in the summer you do, Cousins Lobster, whatever the case may be. Taking those out of the equation and taking the one that is there now out of the equation, if the coffee shop were active, you do have kitchen facilities on the property. What would be the scope of what happens in those day over day?
So the kitchen that's proposed as provided by the health department would be up to the health department standards, and you'd be allowed to use it to prepare, cook food on the property. That's as per the conversations that were had with the health department pending their approval. Since
Okay, but
then,
the conversations that were had with this board
Mhm.
were that you weren't going to do any cooking on site.
yes. So I believe the best representation would be, because of the kitchen would be up to the standards as any regular commercial grade
But-
kitchen, that food could be prepared on the property.
Okay.
Okay, so you're taking back what you said previously, right? You're changing your testimony.
What's on the plan is a prep kitchen. It's not a commercial kitchen.
Right.
Right.
All you're using it for is for reheating and for final presentation of something that was originally prepared off-site.
I'm saying since my original testimony and with the conversation of the health department, this is, the last time I had testimony was back in July. So I will say since then, the conversation with the health department regarding the kitchen that happened after my testimony would hold that kitchen to the same standard as a commercial grade kitchen.
Yeah, I
Right, no,
understand
we
that.
understand that,
We
but the
understand.
question is, will we allow it? And you
Yeah.
haven't applied for it. You can't just say the health department said it's okay. You have to come to us and we have to approve it.
It's not even in your plan.
It's not in your plan. We don't know where it's located,
They do show the prep kitchen on the architectural plans.
but not a commercial
But
kitchen.
not a commercial kitchen. And I would say that and these conditions go back to some of these go back to the first hearing.
Right,
We were always under the impression that there would not be
right.
and we can find a definition for that. I would even say, to me, a prep kitchen, it's like, does it even have a full stove?
No.
It's
No,
it's a
does not.
warming kitchen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's got some
so
coffee machine, some warming.
yeah,
plates.
and do you I would recommend honestly that we would, under these conditions, I was going to recommend that we ask them that there is no warm, because it just brings it a different perspective. It's different than what the testimony that was given.
Right.
is it a gas hookup? Does it come down to a gas hookup? Things like that. So
wait, I'm sorry, but your testimony, your opinion would be, or recommendation would be no reheating?
no, you can reheat, but there's a difference between, we need to pin this down, but
Yeah.
there is a distinction between a prep kitchen and a commercial kitchen. A lot of it has to do with ventilation. It has to do with things like that. And the health department, they have objective standards.
Mhm.
They don't know, they work with us, but they, if you propose something, they tell you what you have to do. So that's,
But they don't look at it like, so whether it's a permitted use or
no,
not.
they don't look
right?
at it as like, what's the scope of how does this affect the overall operations of the site? They look at, the health and safety.
What I will say is my family will follow with the conditions of approval provided by the board. And I apologize if any conversation or revision has evolved since last July. It's been quite some time since then. So based on the conditions of approval, we are adamant that we will follow those.
Okay.
And I apologize, my imagination got ahead of the horse here.
And I just want to clarify, which is that just for the board's knowledge, just basic standards. These are not township standards, but generally, a warming kitchen, prep kitchen will have like an electric oven that only gets to a certain temperature. It doesn't go over 350, 400. So you can't actually, it's generally not meant for cooking. And so then you don't need the type of hoods and ranges and stuff like that. So that I think is what we would limit them to, is a warming kitchen versus not even limit. That's what I thought was put on the record previously.
Right.
I have multiple family members that I am representing by sitting up here, and given a condition of approval, if it would be giving up cooking in the kitchen, that is probably something my family would consider, and I would just need a moment to confirm with them.
The goal would still remain, related to this in a way, is the special permit, temporary, one-off food vendors that come on the site with a food truck. That is still desirable, I think,
Yes.
at the very least. Events, special events, holiday things like that. Is that correct, Matt?
Yes.
That's how we understood it. So thank you.
Okay.
So can I just?
Sure.
Yeah, go on. So just to continue on with the prep space or the warming kitchen, the prep kitchen, in that physical, I mean, when I toured the property, was given a tour, you go down the steps from the event space. I think the kitchen was on maybe the right at the bottom of the stairs. Is that, as the vision changed over the last year, what's currently installed there right now? Is there gas ovens and stoves? Is it currently fitted with any hardware, cookery? Is it set up like a kitchen if I were to go there right now?
If you were to go there right now, there's kitchen equipment in there, but it's not installed or hooked up.
Okay.
It's just sitting in there. We have.
What kind of equipment's sitting there?
There's a refrigerator, an oven, a sink, a table, like a counter.
Okay. Thank you. I do have one other question for you about the application. This is my last question. It has to do with the sign at the front. I believe on the site plan that calls for the ability to put in a monument sign. I believe, is that correct? And, I think we have a monument sign right here in front of the police department with a digital display that shows all kinds of flags and colors and celebrates things that happen through the year. Is that sign intended to also have that electronic component to it, or it's just
No, just the sign. The proposed sign that we would like to have is just changing from the 2 white posts to a column. It would just be a simple South Street Gardens sign with the uplighting.
Same size?
Yeah, the same size. The sign would say the same. It's just the posts would be changing.
And the reason I'm asking is given the residential neighborhood, the current sign I think works well, but just in terms of the residential look and feel of that area, just to sort of keep that same,
I honestly got the inspiration too from the town building here and also a couple different buildings on South Street. It's just changing from the 2 white posts to a
with some sort of wood sign in the middle, no LED or anything. Okay.
And this goes back like a year, just to go back to Fred Stewart's testimony.
Yeah, I just wanted to just clarify for you. I just wanted to circle back. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And just on the sign was going to be externally illuminated. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Everything was uplit, right?
And
Yes.
relocated
Ground
from
uplighting.
its current position to be on your property, or it's part of your variance relief, right?
Yes.
In terms of setbacks to the sign, right? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions from the board? Any members of the public with questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Bruin, you testified both today and at your testimony back a few months ago.
Well, we're only discussing the testimony tonight, to be clear.
Well, the extent that it may have impacted what he said a
Right,
while
yeah,
ago.
but
Well, now, so
again,
let's hear the question before we start.
I don't really need to be told by counsel what to do, especially counsel who said his
I am
section was going to
sorry, I'm
take
sorry, we're not
25
going to argue,
minutes.
we're letting you ask the question. Go ahead.
Stop it already. Mr. Bruin, you testified tonight that it is your philosophy to be a good neighbor and to work with the neighbors, is that right?
Absolutely.
All right, now, did that philosophy extend to having any of your neighbors on the payroll?
It has.
All right, and does that include,
Again, I don't see the relevance here. It's a
Oh, we'll
financial
get
inquiry. It's also a personal inquiry. This goes beyond the scope of
Well,
anything
well,
relevant that a zoning board procedure.
We'll hear it to the extent that person may get up and testify and say this is a great application.
does it include any of the three people who testified in favor of this application back in July? That they are on your payroll?
Trying to think back to who testified.
How about the people at 22 Prospect? Are they-
22.
are they-
They're not on payroll.
Have you provided them assistance for their improvements in the
I have
back of
not
their house?
provided them assistance. I have not provided anybody assistance. And anybody who has wanted to work, it has been really hard to find people to work. So it has been really hard I've begged people to come and work for me. It's been hard to find people to volunteer for our business to work, just to preface.
And you are flat out saying that the people, neither the husband or the wife at 22 is on your payroll?
Now, the two folks that you are referring to at 22 Prospect are not on our payroll.
Was he the Santa Claus that you referred to?
Yes, he is a Santa Claus.
Did he get,
And he is Santa Claus. He is the Santa Claus for what I know and believe in. And he did it out of the kindness of his heart as Santa Claus himself. That's what he is about. Chris Kringle is about making an impact to children
Okay, let's move on.
all over the world.
All right,
That's exactly what he
go
did
to
at
the next
Santa Claus.
Come on. You all know
we'll
Santa
bring
Claus.
in thousands of mail sacks addressed to Santa Claus. And is that the sole relationship that the husband at 22 Prospect has had with 383 South Street?
Okay, yeah, we've heard about 22. Let's go move on to the other.
Well,
people.
because he testified glowingly about how this is such an improvement for the neighborhood. And if he's getting something out of it, that obviously shows bias.
Well, we've established that he was.
The term is biased, all right, at this point, right? You're biased for your
They
client.
don't pretend to be
No,
independent
wait,
witnesses.
let's move on to the next person you want to bring
All
up.
right. Mr. Braun, am I correct that you have obtained a wet chemical system, an approval, a permit for that?
What do you, a wet chemical system?
Yes.
I don't think we've heard any testimony on this from Mr. Brewer.
Well, he can ask that question because
Certainly.
I'm not aware of what he's referring to.
Right, it has to do with, I believe, fire suppression for kitchens.
I don't have any knowledge on.
All right. So if the town records show that there was a permit for a wet chemical system, you're saying you have absolutely no knowledge about
This
that or
witness
what it
said he
is?
has no knowledge.
Yeah, well, let him answer for himself.
yeah, I
personally don't have any knowledge.
let's get the question done, and then he can say I don't
He's
know.
getting respectably thin, Mr. Chairman, at this point.
So
I
is
know.
mine.
Come on, ask the question again, please.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with what type of system is required in a prep kitchen, commercial kitchen. The project was a big project for my family to undertake, and I am familiar that members of my family have been in part of different processes. I personally am not aware of any suppression system or any of the logistics to that matter.
So if I can ask you one more question that Mr. Kelly hopefully won't answer,
Okay.
then, pardon me,
Let's ask
I know,
question.
it's getting, we're getting annoyed at each other. Okay. That if a wet chemical system is particularly designed for a full-grade commercial kitchen, you're saying you would have no knowledge of that one way or the other, correct?
I would say so.
All right, that's fine. Last. Well, I'll put it to you, Mr. Chair. One of my clients, Mr. Vieira, was raised twice by Mr. Bruin's speech to the board. One having to do with an
We're asking
alleged,
questions of this.
I'm asking for some guidance.
Okay.
That once in terms of an alleged posting, although it was not allowed to be described as hearsay, but the name was given. And second, my client having been alleged to have trespassed on the site. Now, the question is, I mean, I can cross-examine, but more to the point, I want to be able to put Mr. Vieira back on the stand with these last-minute allegations having nothing to do with the land
He
use
testified
application.
last time that he was not on the land, he was on the property behind it in the, what was the paper street.
Yes,
We testified to already, yes.
So it's been testified to.
so the trespass is just a
Well, it
gratuitous.
just straight out, has nothing to do with the merits of this application.
It's just not relevant to the application.
I'm not the person who raised it.
I know
It
that.
doesn't matter who
All right.
raised it, it's just not relevant.
It's not relevant, has nothing to do with this application, we're not even gonna consider it.
Then I have no further questions.
Any other members of the public with questions of this witness? Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion.
Thank you, sir. We've got, our next witness is a new witness. It's recall of civil engineering testimony. It's going to be very brief and limited on the inquiry raised by the objector, civil engineer, as to whether or not we trigger a major development.
Right.
This is a new witness to the forum, though, on behalf, and in Mr. Stewart's instead this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
And your name, please?
My name is Patrick McClellan, McClellan.
Pat, briefly for the benefit of the board and your record, your background, professional credentials, and licensing in the state of New Jersey.
Certainly. I'm a 1989 graduate of the New Jersey Institute of Technology with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey since 1994. My license is still in good standing today. I'm the 50% owner of MCB Engineering Associates in Totowa, New Jersey, since 2002. We lend assistance to Mr. Stewart's firm from time to time when there's some scheduling conflicts. And I happen to know Mr. Stewart actually his whole life. We grew up as next door neighbors. Not that that is important here. And then also I serve as the board engineer for the Township of Westville for its planning and zoning board.
And your license is in New Jersey?
It's in New Jersey
And
and still current.
except to as a professional engineer.
Thank you.
So, Pat, you're here for a very limited, responsive detail this evening, and it was an item we advanced today digitally to the board, and then I think we should mark it. Rich, I don't know what exhibit we're up to on the applicant's end right now, since it's been so long.
5.
A5.
Yeah.
So, A5, we're going to mark shortly. If you can identify what A5 is for the record, Pat, before you start describing it.
Sure. A5 is a letter under the letterhead of Stewart Surveying and Engineering that's dated April 15 of 2026. It is a summary of comparisons regarding the notion of whether or not this project is a major development, highly more specific regarding the idea of impervious cover.
Would you like to read the analysis and conclusions of that report, which, to be clear, you collaborated with Mr. Stewart on this analysis, on this inquiry since the prior public meeting when it was authored by the applicant's objecting engineer, is that right?
That's correct. That actually was the genesis of this study. We did see the exhibits that were presented by opposition's engineer, specifically the infrared 2006 imaging that he showed that indicated some red ground covers, which in infrared language means that the ground could potentially be green. And what that raised in my head immediately is that we have to be very careful about what the definition of impervious cover is in the state of New Jersey. It's easy to look at something that's pavement on a aerial photo and conclude it's impervious, but sometimes we have what appear to be landscape surfaces, and we default to them being permeable surfaces. But what's important to note is that the state of New Jersey defines impervious surfaces now as land that is highly resistant to water infiltration. That's different than saying a hard surface. So there are cases where gravel is impervious. There's cases where soil is impervious. There's cases where grass is impervious, etc. And what it comes down to is that the days of being able to look at an aerial photograph is not sufficient in a lot of cases to make that determination. We have to kind of resort to a bit of a forensic approach now, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. That you heard a lot of testimony about that this property has been active in various capacities for decades, and if you look back through historic aerial photographs, we see disturbances going as far back as 1931, where this property looked like it was totally disturbed. Now, the resolution of the photo isn't clear enough to say whether it was pavement, grass, gravel, or what have you. But it certainly indicates that this property's been active for decades. And so the conclusion or the criteria that we have to follow is very specific in New Jersey when you're determining whether or not you're exceeding the threshold of major development from an impervious cover perspective. You're to make a comparison between two situations. One is the comparison of the property in 2004, and that's what Mr. Chisvet was making his point on. And then you compare it to the situation today, which is a little bit more easier to determine because you can go out and do an actual survey, an actual investigation. So I think we were all in close enough agreement with the impervious cover today, but where I differ is my interpretation of what happened in 2004, and I'd like to offer reasons for that. First off, for starters, the soil in the rear part of the property, which is the big part of the big concern, is a soil that's classified what we call hydrologic soil group D. What does that mean? It means that the soil is a poorly drained soil. Not a surprise because we have wetlands nearby. We probably have high groundwater table over there. We probably have very silty materials, and the National Survey for Soils is indicating that it's relatively impermeable soil. And we know from experiences with NJDEP that if you have a classified soil as D, they consider that an impermeable soil. So whether it's grass, mud, pavement, or what have you, water will sit at the top lenses of it. And this is somewhat consistent with your testimony too about some of the localized flooding in the area back in the earlier days. And I would opine that if the property had a sandy soil, let's say, that traditionally would allow soil to easily infiltrate into the ground, you probably would not have had those situations. And then when you go and you put pavement on it, you'd see a substantial impact, a substantial difference. But since those flooding situations have been happening, as far back as I think testimony was 2010, there were some issues. The opinion forensically for me is that the soils were not permeable at that time. The other thing too is that when you look at green surfaces, grass surfaces, or what looks like a grass surface on aerial photos, and anybody who's done weeding in their yard can attest to that. You could have a beautiful patio, and if you neglect it for a while, you get soil drops on it, you get seed drops on it, it starts to get green. And once you start elevating, getting higher up, it looks like it's green, it looks like it's grass. And that's also evidenced on the Mr. Chivette's exhibits as well. If you look at, I think it was his objecting exhibit 2, where he shows a 2020 aerial photo. There's a lot of green shown on that one, but we know from experience going out there, because that's more current, that it actually is, or a lot of impermeable surfaces out there. So with those things in mind, it's a reasonable assumption, in my professional opinion, that the soils were not permeable back in 2004, but in fact are impermeable. And so what we did then is we did one more level of protection. We actually, and I did this personally, went out in the field earlier this week with a penetrometer device. It's a pole that you push into the ground, measures the force that you're pushing. It looks like a pogo stick, but it has a pressure meter on it, and it's a pointed rod that goes into the ground. In 2017, the conservation districts in New Jersey gave us our first attempt to define physically what an impermeable surface is. And that was by taking this penetrometer device, pressing down on the ground, that if the post goes in 6 inches or greater, without pressing down greater than 300 pounds per square inch, that's a permeable soil. They rely upon that because they discourage the compaction of soils during construction. And if you show that soils that are supposed to be permeable are in fact compacted because of the construction activity, you have to go back and remedy that. But what they did, probably not intentionally, but they certainly gave us as an industry some kind of a standard that we can measure. And we have actually exercised this measurement to help with applications before the DEP, where we made a claim that a non-paved surface was impermeable. The DEP said, well, it's not pavement, it's permeable, and we relied upon the Conservation District's method to determine that, in fact, it is impermeable. It doesn't need to be just pavement in order to be an impermeable surface. And ultimately, we received flood hazard permits on the basis of them agreeing with our position. So when we apply that here, we come to the conclusion that forensically, because the property has been used since at least the 1930s, and activity has been throughout the site, that it has over years has accumulated ground cover, compaction, gravel, all sorts of activities. We hear buildings, greenhouses, etc. And then when we go out there today and test it in the areas that are green, I mean, in the back of the property, there's actual grass areas that we ran the tests in. So we didn't go into the gravel parking lot. That would kind of be cheating for this purpose. But in the grass areas, we could only get the penetrometer on the ground 2 inches. And that by that definition is impermeable. And then the theory is, well, did it become impermeable from 2004 to now? And again, I opine that it did not, because the efforts to take a permeable soil, if you had a grass area that you could successfully perform that test on, you would require heavy equipment and a lot of activity to compress it to become impermeable surface. So it is not something that would have probably happened overnight. It's something that happens over decades of use. And there's also the placement of material, which again, by some of the historic areas, predate 2004. So with respect, we have a strong opinion, and we've outlined it in the letter, that the impervious cover was actually greater in 2004 based on not just the ground cover, but the statistics of the soil itself, the soil type, and the history that we see of how the property has been used. And then you heard testimony prior, and I can confirm that the plan before this board is a proposal to reduce impervious cover over what is there today. So when you put it all together, what we have is a net decrease of impervious cover. And then the other prong of major development is that the current area of disturbance. So this is a little gray too, but I think it's a little bit less gray. You've got a site that I think we could all agree has been disturbed almost in its entirety for decades. So we're seeing a redisturbance of land in this application. And you could question whether or not that counts or doesn't count. Let's just say that it counts. But that's been quantified to be about 38,000 square feet, which is under the 1 acre of disturbance. That's the second prong of major development. So respectfully, our findings are that the project does not meet the definition of major development on both of those prongs, and therefore would not be subject to the rules of major development.
So did you take notes on each of the time you used the penetrometer?
Yes. And they were consistent throughout the site. We did 6 locations. We did all the again, if you go to the rear of the site, there's where the parking is occurring today. It's more of a traditional gravel compacted. And if you did the test there, you clearly would be a solid surface. So just to try to be fair, we went into the areas that have grass established on it. Again, which I look at that as more of a property maintenance issue, and I know that the applicant has been doing a good job of cleaning up the property. And I bet if you clear that grass away, you're going to find more of this impermeable surface. And based on the measurements that I took, I would bet that it's probably 2 to 2.5 inches below the surface, because when you go down with the penetrometer, you get about 2 inches down. And then you don't go any further, and you hit that 300 PSI threshold. And, and again, that meets that criteria that the Conservation District has set for us. So, again, I think what we have in the rear is more of a property maintenance issue, which seems to be something the applicant is very enthusiastic about working on. And it seems like there's a little bit more cleaning up they could do if they so choose. But again, the disposition of those areas, in our opinion, remains as impervious surface.
So you said there's some cleanup they could do. What would that entail?
Well, if they so desire to take, whatever over the years, if you don't maintain the property, and it sounds like that there was a time when the property was not well maintained, there could be an accumulation of some soil on top of the gravel, and then there'd be an establishment of some vegetation. It's not really a quality lawn area. It's just poor maintenance, and I'm sure we've all had neighbors who do that as well. So again, if the applicant looks at that and says, that's ugly, I want to do something better there. It looks, they're a garden center. It certainly would be a thought that would cross my mind. They could, go out there and maybe put a little bit more topsoil down. They could, establish a better grass, but it would still be an impermeable soil because below that grass turf is a heavy hard pan layer that water's just not going to go through.
Board members, any questions?
The balance of this discussion hangs with me and my cross. So I've just joined the Zoom meeting so that I can, as a panelist, put materials on the screen for everybody's benefit.
Okay.
I'm going to share my screen to what was previously marked as 09, the Objectors Exhibit 9, which includes Mr. Chevette's exhibit. And I just want to use this for reference to the discussion that was just had.
I'm sorry, that's 09?
This is 09,
Okay.
yes. This is, get that right away. This is page 5 of 12 on 09. It's marked C3 from Mr. Shizvet. The areas that's outlined in cyan on this map are the areas that he had identified by aerial imagery as being additional disturbance areas and constructed with compacted gravel, some of the improvement areas that he was using to demonstrate his major development position. And for the question being that the conversation that we just heard in your testimony regarding soil conservation district standards for impermeable surfaces, these areas are areas in which you conducted your testing earlier in the week?
The rear, yes.
Okay, at the rear, specifically at the rear of the property?
Specifically at the rear, correct.
Okay. And then I'm going to flip over to the planner's objectors. The objectors planner's report, page 3 of 11. There are aerials that were provided at that time. 1931. This aerial to the left-hand side, this being the rear of the property. And the area, if we could see on my cursor, or perhaps I need to kind of highlight it, in this area here being that rearward area, as I flip back to 09, similarly noted here to the extent of the property where you did the testing. There was a prior history of the garden uses, the activity, the disturbance, the compaction of the soils, history of about 100 years of use, disturbance, and compaction, and the results that you found were consistent with that being impermeable surfaces, low infiltration rates.
Correct.
So irrespective of when we look at what date we look back to, 2004 or prior, we see high-intensity runoff generation from the site by all land covers because of the underlying soil conditions.
Correct.
And if we look at restorative values of disturbed areas, as you noted in your testimony, there may be grass land cover, but that land cover is not well draining, it's not absorbing, it's creating the same runoff, essentially a runoff pattern that is relatively consistent of high runoff generation for 1930s through the 50s and on for the entire footprint of the property.
Correct.
The entire footprint that is current was disturbed during the Bruins' recent time on the site and disturbances that were without the approvals that are being contemplated tonight.
Yes.
Are there any areas of the site that your client has disturbed that you believe were outside of prior footprints of disturbance of the site?
No.
Areas prior to 2004 where the stormwater regs look back to major development?
No.
Okay. So in the strict interpretation of NJAC 7.8 and the major development standards, you have a cumulative disturbance of an acre or a quarter acre of impervious surfaces. And the look back is to 2004. That's when the stormwater rules came into play. And there's aerials that go back to that date. When we understand site histories that predate that, we have sites that, such as this one, I believe, that have a high generated runoff that is essentially a developed and improved site that over time has had restorative regeneration and regrowth, but only really to superficial land cover, not to runoff rates. So when we look at a proposed site plan and we see a reduction from the surveyed conditions to what's being proposed, the evaluation of that, if done as a minor development or at the highest standard of a major development, would generate a reduction in peak flow runoff as well as quantity runoff. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And so with that understanding, to me, the township engineer and the board's engineer, it is more critical for the major development standard to understand net impervious increases since 2004 than net disturbance. Because the net disturbance, if applied as a major development, will not yield the runoff delta and increase that needs to be mitigated in normal conditions. Normally, you look at well-draining soils, you look at wooded areas that retain the water and don't discharge the water. And those history of conditions speaks back to some of the concerns that have been raised throughout this application regarding the wooded wetland areas, the tributary, water impacts during high runoff to the surrounding area. Those are existing systemic situations as opposed to generated by the last few years of disturbance on the site. So in my opinion to the board, the reduction of net impervious on this site is the critical evaluation point for identifying this more appropriately as a minor development than a major development. And if it were to be held to a major development standard, we would see the burden of the increased analysis generating the same net result, which is the runoff generated is equal to or less than what is being compared as a prior existing condition. So I do find it's appropriate to consider it as a minor development. I accept the position of the applicant's engineer. And that was not just cross, that was some testimony from your board engineer. And I blended that line so that you have the opportunity to then ask me any questions that you have, and then we can continue crossing.
Just post haste, did we ever swear you in?
Yes.
We have, and
Okay.
I am still acknowledged to be on record.
Okay.
Sworn.
Just want to make sure that was clear. Board members, any questions of the township engineer?
I guess I do have a question about the disturbance, when you're saying disturbance off of the site that may have been created by the applicant. I just have this drawing in front of me from earlier this evening. So I see a black line that refers to as the property line. So right off of the property line near where the residential units are, there's a ditch or a gulch or whatever you want to call it that actually runs back towards the wetlands. There's a little wooden bridge that goes over it, sort of connecting it to the residential neighbors. And, you know, when I was there, it was visible water. I mean, I think it's dry right now, but it does fill with water and flow. So it looks like there's a whole row of recently new plantings and landscapings there. And I don't want to assume anything, but I'm assuming that was just put in by the applicant to make the place look better or spruce it up. But would that be classified as a disturbance off-site or on the site to have all those sort of trees put in there right along that drainage ditch?
It's not on site. It's, my understanding is it's within the Paper Street right-of-way, the unimproved section to the west of the road that is improved off of our main entry point. That's not cumulative to the site disturbance. Those improvements, including the improvements to the what was termed on-street parking on the site plan, those are all previously discussed as and stipulated to for a consideration of a condition for township committee approval, because those are outside the limits of the application and the private property. So those disturbances, cumulative impacts, and whether or not they remain or if they need to be improved to a higher standard would be the decision of our township committee. as part of resolution compliance if this was considered for approval.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I'll just note back to their site plan. The area you're referring to, I think more clearly is shown on the plan here, this landscaping that's here nearest a drainage ditch that had wetland flagging adjacent to it. Yes.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Since we got a little bit carried away there, does anybody have questions of either witness? Yes.
I think it's just one question.
Okay.
And it's for you. Is it Mr. McLennan?
McClellan.
McClellan, pardon me.
It's okay, close enough.
I think it's only one question, which is this. Leaving aside any legal implications of your answer, I just want, like, under the applicable regs, is this somewhat non-permeable soil counted as impervious, or is it not counted as impervious? Just literally under the regs.
It's counted as impervious. There's a burden of proof. Because again, traditionally, we've always looked at pavement and we go, that's impermeable. We all know that. Concrete, pavement, dwellings, things like that. But the NJDEP definition in 7:8, which is the regulations of record, have now worded carefully that it's lands that are highly resistant to infiltration. And that's a way to recognize compacted gravel, tight soils, and in this case, again, over the history of using the property, it's just compacted down. It just doesn't allow water to go in. Not to mention, too, again, the fact that the native soil at that part of the property is designated as a hydrologic soil group D, which is it's a public document, and that says that it's a poorly drained soil. So it starts with that soil, and all of these factors put together is what makes this an impermeable area. And if we had some reason to file for a DEP permit here or do a stormwater management plan, we would make a successful argument that these lands are impermeable.
We have one follow-up, which is then in terms of the site plan prepared for these improvements, was or should have the impervious nature of the soil taken into account in terms of stormwater management?
Well, I believe that they were. Because again, the applicant's position and Mr. Stewart's position has been that this is a non-major development. So, from the start, that's been the position, and then it was challenged by Mr. Chisbett, and then now, we're offering a more forensic approach to the definition. And again, we're continue to conclude it's a non-major development because we're under the quarter-acre threshold. So I think we've been consistent about that.
Sorry, nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other members of the public with questions of this witness or of the township engineer? Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion.
Thank you,
Chairman.
How long is this witness going to take? Seeing how nothing has fit that timetable yet.
5 minutes, 7 minutes?
Can I get 10?
10 or less on direct, we have a single exhibit.
10 plus cross, plus public. I don't think we're finishing tonight. Plus, board deliberation, there's going to be quite a bit of that.
I say we finish
On
the
our side,
witnesses.
At this point, candidly, I'm willing to forego a lengthy closing statement. I suspect our neighbor will have something of substance. but-
Yeah, but we're going to be talking about conditions for half an hour.
I mean,
There's going to be a lot of back and forth on that.
this applicant, I understand the board, and part of the volunteers, we thank you for being here on a special hearing date. I mean, I have to say on behalf of the applicant that they're looking to conclude this matter. It's been going on for.
Oh, I was hoping
I know
this
you
would
are
be.
as well. It's been going on for a long time.
Is the board willing to stay to at least finish this witness? There would be direct cross, public cross, and then we would come back and do public,
Public comment.
and
Closing
board
and-
deliberation. So then we'd be done with witnesses. We would just have public comment and board deliberation, which, is going to take over an hour probably.
Working out what might be.
Yeah. I think both.
No, I would like to get this witness done. He's been sitting here patiently all night.
Yeah, that's fine.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, remain standing, raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name, please?
Benjamin Mueller, Mueller. I'm a principal at Ostergaard Acoustical Associates, located in Woodbridge, New Jersey.
And for the record, background, credentials, your licensing, your experience in the field of acoustic engineering within the area you intend to qualify.
Sure. I've been working in this field for 27 years now. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. My license is current and in good standing. My background is mechanical engineering from Villanova University. I also have a master's in mechanical engineering with a concentration in noise and vibration control from Stevens Institute of Technology. And I've been accepted as an expert in the tri-state area for my career.
Okay, we'll accept you as an expert in acoustics.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ben, so you've had an opportunity to become familiar with the applicants.
Certainly. You've had an opportunity to become familiar with the applicant's project plans, their operational goals. You've reviewed the prior hearing transcripts and testimony. When you weren't here, you were in fact at prior several hearings. You've inspected the property and you've performed a thorough analysis and have reached conclusions from an acoustic perspective as to what impacts there may or may not be with the event space, both indoors and outdoors. Is that right?
Correct.
So you had an opportunity also to prepare a letter that was submitted to the board previously. That letter is dated 12th of February 2026. It is titled Acoustic Review Memo. That's on file with the board. Mr. Ola, I don't know if you'd like us to mark this. It's been on file for 2 months now, but.
Well, you know what, since we're going to directly speak to it, why don't we mark it as
A6?
A6, please?
Very
Yeah.
good. Okay. And we've got another exhibit we will show momentarily. And Ryan, I don't know if you can assist us with this. If you want it from the screen, it's the one that I emailed you the other day. It's the single sheet. If I might, it's this one. If you have the ability to help us put this one on.
Joe, you send your screen share? Is that something you can pull up? You have the share
Thank you,
file.
Joe. I can log onto the Zoom as well if you need me to, but if you're there, I appreciate that. Thank you.
The PDF.
What email to you again, Joe?
Why don't you just send it again, Larry?
You got it. Send it now. Morris Township or Van Cleef, Joe?
Either one. Yeah. Or text.
Is it the acoustical memo?
Yeah.
Beat me. Thanks. Perfect, thank you very much. So this document will mark as A7. I'll let Mr. Mueller identify it for the record, and then Ben, please start describing the benefits of your analysis and conclusions for the board.
We have a hard copy of this?
I can send hard copies in, I think you send the PDF.
Okay.
We will provide the PDF digital file is what we were providing.
Yeah, so provide a hard copy when you can, please.
Okay, so currently up is an exhibit that we would entitle South Street Gardens Music Sound Survey Results. It's dated March 25th, 2026. and it's an annotated Google Earth aerial photo showing circles with values in them, which are results from a sound survey that I conducted on the premises on the 25th of March.
Okay. So Beth, if you want to walk the board through what's involved with your analysis, with the goal, I know, being identifying what the decibel levels would be at the property line and at various
Sure.
locations around the property, what you did, where you did it, and what your results were.
Sure. So briefly summarizing noise testimony to date, we know that there's a local and a state noise ordinance. We know that the project, regardless of what use this is, needs to comply with it. And then there's been a lot of conjecture over the capabilities of the project doing so. So our February memo was primarily described to provide a narrative approach to ways that the applicant might be able to better assure the municipality of that compliance. We've now taken a step further since our last meeting. We've discussed in detail how this is a unique application because there's entities that are there versus what we're proposing. And so we went on the site on March 25th and tested the sound systems, both that are house sound systems, ones that are currently installed, as well as what I would call mobile sound systems, which would comprise a pair of speakers, much like a DJ setup. So what I tried to do is show a series of tests that we conducted on the premise in different colors. Apologize if we're colorblind here, but I'll walk you through the exhibit in the location so that everyone can understand. So the first measurement group that we did was we tested the house system in the upper story of the main building. That's shown by the circle on top of the roof with the 92 value in it. So with the system set up to its maximum volume, we were measuring 92 indoors. I took a pair of measurements at the property line across the right of way. Those are shown in also red as well. And we had values of 62 with the windows open. And then when we closed the windows, I measured levels that were 53 or lower. The 53 or lower is important. If I can direct your attention to the bottom left corner of the exhibit, the current ambient, which is dominated by distant traffic from interstate, currently is in the 52 to 57 dB range. Right? It's a range because depending on a truck pass by or traffic surges or the like, you could have any sort of variability in the ambient. And that number there being in the low to mid 50s aligns with what the opposition's expert testified to as well. I believe he said it was around 52, 53. So when I look at the closed windows, we were having challenges identifying the music playing indoors. And that makes sense. It's a solid construction with windows closed. You're providing the sound very little ability to reach the outdoors. That was kind of like the easiest of the series of tests. I think there hasn't really been much of discussion in the questions and narrative here of a concern over indoor events. So we then pivoted to the exterior events. So the next one that we looked at was what we're going to call the small courtyard. It's located in the rear, in the alcove between where the two main buildings are. And that's going to be represented by a series of green circles. And so if you can look at the circle that has the level of 85 in it, that's the center of what would be considered our small courtyard or secondary courtyard. And then to the right of that circle, you see an arrow that is pointing west. That is where we set up two 15-inch speakers on tripods with a music playing, and measuring 85 was the center of what, without a more technical term, the dance floor, if you will, the hot spot of the event. We then did a series of other measurements. So backing off, we moved to the edge of the paved courtyard area, measured 76. And then what is unique about this alcove is that it is particularly shielded from northern residences along Prospect. And then that is further highlighted when we went up to the northern property line and we measured levels of 54 and 56 moving along that property line. Those levels then being close down to around where existing ambient is already present. So what results then, that outdoor noise is audible, but it becomes a blend of ambient traffic and music. The point of where we'll get to the full conclusions of this, but the point showing that we're in far below the threshold of the code limit of 65. The next focus, we moved on to the main courtyard, the primary courtyard, which is located nestled between all the buildings. We did a set up with our loudspeaker duo set in the southernmost portion of the courtyard. This is the blue series of results and circles. You'll see the blue triangle near the bottom of the page next to a circle that says 86. So we had the speakers set in what I would consider a worst case scenario, pointing north, creating this tunnel that was testified to by the other noise consultant. 86 in our sound proper around the vicinity of the speakers. 65 at the boundary of where the courtyard ends and the Pear Street begins. And then when we get up to the proper line of the other side of the right of way, measuring levels of 58 at that distance. Lastly, we looked at the house system that's currently installed within the courtyard, and that's comprised of two wall-mounted loudspeakers that are placed roughly 15 feet high. I believe one of the exhibits from opposition showed those from a distance, but we turned those on. We, again, raised the volume of that house system, measured 80 dB around the vicinity of the court. Now, that seems to be the lowest level, but because of the speakers, how they were spread out apart and how they're higher up, this is actually one of the loudest scenarios that we ended up documenting. And that's because it has bigger coverage and allows for a wider spread of event area. Nonetheless, by the time we get up to the northern property line, we're looking at levels of 62. So in conclusion, we showed that with a setup that not only was the applicant more than happy with, I found them to be more than representable for what would be considered a worst case event. And all of our measurements show that levels were below the 65 dB threshold. And in fact, most of the measurements blended in much more readily with the existing ambient in the area, which only just helps to assure the conformity of this application with the area and compliance with the applicable noise codes. Obviously allows me to conclude that there's no negative impact from an outdoor event with music. Just to put everything into perspective.
With amplified music.
With the amplified music. Just to put everything into perspective, these test results are evident of an event. We've heard a large amount of testimony about how events are a small portion of the greater whole. And so this is not a condition that would be carried out throughout the hours of operation every day of the week. In fact, when I arrived, the outdoor loudspeakers, which are shown in orange, which we discussed last, were being used to provide background music, which was able to be talked over, just providing an ambiance. So our demonstration here is to show what an event could be to satisfy the questions and the unknown of what's been discussed for multiple meetings. So that's the bulk of what we have prepared. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Sure. What about like some DJ or band brings in their own amplifiers? How do you measure that?
Sure. So we certainly can understand that there will be a way that we can break things. That was not the purpose of our effort here. Our effort here was to show that it is more than capable of being conforming. We are certainly, I think as far as an application goes, the noise code is in perpetuity. So the idea would be that while events might vary, that the owner is responsible to make sure that they're conforming with being a good neighbor.
But as an acoustic engineer, you know the problems of trying to get somebody who's qualified to come in at 10:30 at night and measure the noise level.
Sure, understood. Well, I think that as events start here, there will certainly be more of a hands-on and a need to be educated. In my memo of February, I had discussed with the applicant, they own a sound level meter. It behooves them to be intimate with the events that are going to happen before they happen to know what the extent of it is. So we're discussing a lot of administrative controls. I mean, the engineering result is turn the volume down to be an appropriate level. And what we've shown here is that not only are we able to have that be achievable, but it actually results in a more than acceptable event experience. And in fact, in my discussions during the survey, we just said, this is probably on the high end. This is, the idea would be that when you have an event, you can have a music area, but you also then require areas where you can have conversations. And so the idea isn't to have a raging party, but rather being able to accommodate the variety of areas that guests would seek out when they come to a space like this.
Okay. Any other questions from board members?
I have a question.
Okay.
So why are we talking about amplified music in the courtyard when the testimony was that there wouldn't be any?
At the time, prior to engaging the acoustic expert witness, the thought was that it would never meet the noise regulations, the Title VII noise regulations at the property line. Since engaging Mr. Mueller's office and having performed this survey, it conforms outside. So the applicant is amending that request to have amplified music, not just indoors for indoor events, but for outdoor events too, in the courtyard areas on the property, which will, again, be subject to board scrutiny for consideration of shutoff time. But this meets the standard, the noise standard, going up to 10 p.m. for outdoor events with amplified music at not a shy level of the volume knob.
Yeah, except, you're a use variance, right, in a zone where this isn't permitted to begin with. So, up until now, the testimony has been no amplified music, no microphones, just, James Taylor showing up playing a folk guitar, right? And now you're saying that's not the case. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, listen, the testimony provided tonight shows that this would be within the rights of the property. And it's regardless of use, because if we were approved for condominiums that were discussed, there would be noise sources produced by that, and they would also apply to regulation. And
Right.
commercial use here would also have the same limits applied to
But this is an event venue that can have events 4 nights a week, whereas if you're in a condominium, somebody will hold a party one night and you might have another party 6 months later or but they're not going to be every night, and they're not going to be like 3 on a weekend.
Understood. What we're presenting here is that this unknown event
Right.
has a face, has a name, and the levels are nowhere near as draconian as what has been talked about for the past 9 months.
And I think the silver lining potentially to not concluding this evening, as difficult as that's going to be for the applicant to accept, is the fact that we've heard the board's thoughts on a few different items tonight that the applicant has evolved with their positions on. So, right now, what is on the table from the applicant's side as a request is that outdoor events be permitted to have amplified sound because it will comply with the code. We understand that that's ripe for board consideration, given the V variance. We heard about that in the food truck context as well as the cooking context. The applicants are here. They're paying attention to this. So we'll be discussing this between now and the next public hearing. But right now, yes, that is the updated request, Mr. Oler, Mr. Chairman, that based upon this survey, the applicant would like outdoor events to be able to have amplified music playing.
Okay. Before we get any other questions from board members?
No.
Any questions from the professionals? Any questions from public? Yes.
So, Mr. Mueller, I know you're not here as a planner, you're here as an acoustics expert, but the bottom line of what you're saying is that it'll be up to the neighbors, if they're bothered by sound, to have to call somebody, the police, somebody. That'll be their burden, correct?
If I am to reword your question in a way that I understand it, you're saying that compliance with the code still may result in complaints? Is that?
I'm saying there may not even be compliance with the code. You're just assuming there will be, correct?
Can we start over? I'm sorry.
Sure, let's start over.
I don't understand what you're asking.
Okay, you're here as an engineer?
Yeah, as a noise expert, sure.
Okay, as the problem that you posed yourself as a noise expert, have you assumed that the applicant will be compliant with noise regulations?
I provided testimony tonight that shows that it is more than able to be accomplished.
But that's not what I asked you. I asked you if you are assuming as part of your acoustic exercise that the applicant will comply with noise regulations.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think he's making any assumption on what the
He's not-
applicant will and won't do
I
with
think
legal
I think
compliance.
you're asking, does his testimony ensure that the applicant will comply with the
Well,
sound levels on which he
I'm
tested?
not asking him that, because he certainly can't answer that.
Right.
I'm saying his testimony seems to be presuming that the applicant will comply.
Well, the entire applicant team's intent is to comply, and that's
Right.
always been the case. That's a very, common theme throughout our prosecution, but I don't know how Mr. Mueller answers the question. I candidly don't understand the question either.
Well, I didn't ask you, I asked him.
We're 2 for 2, though, without understanding, sir.
Okay, let's ask the question again and let's see if we can answer it, or
All
somebody
right.
can answer.
I prefaced it by saying, Mr. Mueller, I know you're not here as a planner. I realize that. But what I was saying that, what you are saying is that neighbors who may have a sound problem, it'll be on them to go to the police or someone else 1 night a week or 2 nights a week or 3 nights a week, and otherwise they're just relying on the good graces of the applicant. Is that right?
Can I ask that question to be clarified? Neighbors who have a problem, are we assuming now, in this, since we're in the world of assumptions, are we assuming
I think-
that the noise exceeds the allowable volume?
Well, I think he's saying if the neighbors perceive that the noise is over the limits as testified to, that a burden would be upon the neighbors to go and seek enforcement at whatever time of day or night this event is being held.
I think it goes without saying, if you feel slighted by the system, the onus is on you to go and avail yourself of the rewards of justice under that system, whether or not noise compliance is met or not.
All right, I'll take that answer from Mr. Cali. That's good enough for me. Now, then, Mr. Mueller, I have one other question for you. Were you here when Eric Vieira testified as he was walking around with his video camera?
Yes.
And he testified that from a distance, he could hear the DJ, he could hear speech, he could hear music. Are you questioning that testimony?
Here's my comments on the testimony. I was not there when the event happened, so I was listening to the testimony as everyone else was. Audibility and sound level are related, but not necessarily correlatable. So the audibility of music at a distance, I surely would support that. Watching the cell phone video with the microphone that's designed to be highly directive and also to block out background sound levels did not persuade me of what the video was trying to infer. What we've tried to do is take all those unknowns out of the equation and show that when I was there physically testing music of levels that are presented in my exhibit here, that they were below the limit.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, what may well be my final question, maybe, which is, you as an expert witness, I mean, you can deal with hypothetical questions, correct?
Sure.
So let's say that hypothetically, that Mr. Vieira's cell phone video was not doctored, that he didn't adjust the volume, that it was accurate, and that it portrayed exactly what he said it portrayed. How do you explain that?
How do I explain that?
Yeah, that level of noise and as he's walking around. How do you explain it?
Sure. So I guess I'll put out there as my professional opinion, it appears that we have a tenant in the building, or the owners of the building, that were not fully aware of all the ins and outs, and so maybe overzealous during a kickoff party to have an event that may or may not have been allowed to happen. Obviously, that goes to support what I'm saying here, but that doesn't mean that this can't be corrected. It doesn't mean that we can't have a successful project. It doesn't mean that we can't have outdoor amplified music that fully conforms with applicable ordinances.
That's fine. You explained yourself quite well. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other members of the public with questions? Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion.
So he's representative. I just want to go back to, what was the starting volume when you did these tests?
So depending on the pair of measurements, we have a different starting volume. So if we correlate the colored circles, that's how they match up. So when we did the inside measurement, we had levels of 92, and then the corresponding outdoor measurement, again, at the property line. For the small courtyard, we had measurements of 85 in the middle of the courtyard area.
Okay, so what if it was 92 in the outside
Sure. So
courtyard?
going back to our previous discussion, could we break the system? Absolutely.
Right.
But that's like designing a bridge
But
for
who-
a certain
who
number of
does
elephants
that,
and
right?
saying, how many elephants will it fail
So
at?
who oversees that for the outdoor courtyard that says, hey, you can't go over 96?
Sure.
Or 90 or 66?
As a consultant with decades of experience, the only thing I can sell is education. And I think that's the continued process here. It's an education on what you're legally allowed to do and not do from a zoning ordinance, from building a fence, from taking out permits, from noise contributions. So I think that there has been a lot of education that has occurred so far that will only promote success here now that everyone is aware of what the parameters are. Can I say that it will never exceed? No. But going back to the cross-examine question about what happens when the people call, that triggers what the noise code is intending to do, and that's to be a response tool. So there can be a complaint, there would be an investigation. If the level is under, the complaint's unfounded and there's no violation given. If the level is higher than allowed, then that becomes a violation.
Right, so you
and
expect the police to show up with a monitor to be able to test that sound?
Those are the laws that are in place, and whether or not the municipality has resources, we have county resources that are available and the state resources available. I understand what I'm saying is factual and yet also complicated, but every application comes forward and has to comply with litter and lighting, and your zoning officials are
Right.
burdened to some degree on it. The idea would be that once everything is operating smoothly, that's no longer a day-to-day
How long is that going to take? I mean, how many times do they get to do it wrong before they're going to start doing it right?
I think that happens, then you will certainly be the first to know. I also think that dramatically changes any future requests upon the application. This is just the way.
And are you saying that they want to have outdoor music until 10 p.m.?
I'm saying that's what the code would allow.
Okay, but what do they want? Because before they didn't want it at all, and now I'm not sure what they want.
We've discussed amplified music outdoors, ceasing at 9 p.m. internally as a team. The applicant.
So, I just want to, I apologize, Mr. Schuster, I just want to ask Mr. Oler, because we talk about the noise ordinance. This comes up in other situations where the township can't control over and above the noise ordinance. However, once again, the applicant is asking to do something here that they are not permitted to do under the code, and the board can impose conditions. So this isn't a case where this is not a site that's zoned for outdoor concerts or something like that. You know what I mean? So in that case, obviously the noise ordinance applies. But am I correct here that the board can still, the noise ordinance would
absolutely.
govern if the board were to let this go?
If the
But
board,
there's a lot of different,
Yeah.
there's a lot of space between what the board can permit here and what the noise ordinance permits.
yeah, if the board says you can have amplified music, then the noise ordinance applies to that music, right?
Yes.
But they can also condition it to say no amplified music, no microphones outside, right?
Certainly, there would be a lot of things in between, such as X number of events, or that. I mean, I've seen all kinds of things in place okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about extremes, and I guess
No, I know, that's why I said a lot of space.
There's the-
That's what I meant.
Yes.
That's exactly what I meant. Yes, sorry.
Try to take a different approach with a question to the expert to try to help quantify this if it's
Right.
something we want to quantify. The sound system that you use to do the testing inside the building to generate 92 and outside in the courtyard at 86.
two different systems.
Two different systems.
Correct.
Those systems, do they have manufacturer specifications that indicate a maximum decibel generated by, how is that measured by a manufacturer?
Usually, it's by a speaker wattage, and then they do provide an output associated with that.
And that would be like an output decibel level for an interior environment, is a controlled environment, and an exterior outside
It could be
environment?
converted to be that. Yes.
If outdoor music was to be considered by the board under the D1 use variance, could the specifications of the speaker systems be administratively controlled in contracts with the vendors to ensure that the vendor brings only equipment that would meet the testimony that's been provided?
Yes, that might be, like, for example, indoors becomes a lot more straightforward because we are an existing house system. And so you would, as an owner, you would say that a new, or a DJ would plug into their system, not have.
And that would be the fixed control indoors?
For indoors, yes.
The exterior, could that also be accomplished, or would it be more appropriate for the vendor to be able to bring their equipment?
You could do something similar, which would require installing more equipment. In my February letter, my offering to counter that would be that whatever setup was brought in, because the variables there, that could be policed on the property line by the applicant in order to calibrate it to be appropriate.
Controlled testing prior to the event
Correct.
to confirm compliance with the conditions of an approval.
Yes.
And to add to that, Joe and Mr. Chairman, back to a question of yours, what if the DJ comes in with different equipment or something? I think that was your inquiry, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman. The Bruins confirmed for me that they, like controlling the other aspects of the facility, they will agree to control these sound systems, whatever's permitted. If it's beyond the indoor space, we're talking about outdoor space amplification. I know there's been some board questions on that, but the systems that are permitted to be there, they will be under control by ownership, not a third-party vendor, a DJ or whatever the case may be.
So in part, they could control it by keeping the windows closed, right?
That's absolutely right.
Okay, so for inside, it's easy. But, you know, the outside.
Here, would you, at time of a final inspection for CO, a sound test that confirms the equipment that they're proposing is in compliance?
I'll look back, absolutely.
And just trying to give framework in case the board wants to consider this when we come back for continuation hearing and we deliberate.
Okay.
So really what you're saying is the vendor, you know, whoever the musician is wouldn't bring his own amplifiers. You're going to have some kind of muffled amplifier station, right?
No,
That's the way cars can't go fast.
Right?
Right?
Yeah.
Regulator.
A house system offers the benefit of having a limiter. It also has the ability of setting up a distributed network. I think what happens in most events is that you have 2 racks of speakers and you just blast everyone. So a distributed sound system would offer more uniform coverage without having to maximize the volume. So there are a lot of different things technically that can be explored in a house system.
So look, we've all been to concerts where your ears are ringing for 2 days after,
unfortunately,
right?
yes.
And, you know, we don't want that here.
Correct.
So-
Yeah. And the levels that we're testing were nowhere near that. I found that the dance floor of the event area was higher than desirable for myself. But again, we resulted in positive results at the property line.
And look, I know that the board knows this property. You've heard extensive testimony, or whether it has value or not, about the sum spent on improving this site. The applicant's not interested in it being Animal House. Their interest is very much aligned with yours in that regard. They are interested in music.
Well, except, you know, the video we saw was pretty compelling, right? You get to the tunnel, I'll call it, and it got much louder.
Yeah.
Like just that one step, that tunnel amplified just by itself. So, you know, I think it's a valid concern that the neighbors have,
Absolutely.
right?
So let's move on to when are we going to get this back on the board?
We have the
We can
previously
include in 2
carried
weeks
here.
while it's fresh in everybody's mind. If you
We have an application on the 27th that has probably 40 objectors out there.
You wouldn't want to stay here.
Yeah,
They would join, yeah.
and I have to recuse myself on that.
Right, so we'd be short a member as well, okay.
Well, I'm not application,
On that one, right.
because it's right up the street.
So far, I've got one on the May.
Pardon?
So far, I've only got one matter on May.
May 18th?
Yeah, that's,
That's,
no, I'm sorry. Yeah, because we have our April 27th, we have the contested matter.
right.
And then the next meeting would be May 18th, and I only have one matter so far.
And what kind of matters that? Just,
Residential, small project.
okay,
So quick.
so quick. hopefully.
I'm not going to give that qualifier.
May 18th,
May 18th.
does that work for you?
It does, Mr. Oler, and that would be simply for discussion of conditions and deliberations. I think.
It would be like,
that-
it'd have to include statements from public, members of
right.
public, any statement you want to make, discussions about conditions, board consideration and vote.
I just want to confirm that for the applicant's sake, that the objector's case in chief has concluded, which he's already indicated tonight. He doesn't have to
Yes.
say it again. Ours has as well.
So we're just-
But for the dialogue of conditions potentially.
Yeah,
Well, I don't think we did public comments. though,
No, we didn't do public
right?
comments.
So we're going to do
but
public
each-
comments.
Each teams, if you will,
Right.
case in
Right.
chief.
Witnesses are completed on both sides. We have to do public comment, closing, if there's a closing statement, and then deliberation, right?
agreed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's May 18th?
May 18th.
Okay, so for purposes of the public, this meeting is going to conclude now. It will continue on May 18th in this room at 7 PM without further notice from the applicant.
Okay.
Question.
Any further business? Do we have that monthly report?
I didn't go for the special. I was planning on
Okay.
posting that the next meeting.
Okay, great. All right, any other business? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.